Athletes like Reggie Bush know what it's like to work through adversity to reach a goal. Visit Adidas.com and watch as your favorite Adidas stars tell their amazing stories of achievement. Enter for a chance to win tickets to see Reggie Bush and the Saints live in action, all at Adidas.com.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Big One Up Your show. The weekend starts right now. It's Friday, September the 28th. I'm Garnet Lee. We're back here in San Francisco. Have most of the gang together. I'll let you know right now, Shane is...
Where the hell is Shane?
He's, well...
You know when Shane's not here, why is it?
Because he can't manage his workload.
I'm far too busy.
I'm far
That's
too busy.
right.
Yeah. So he's doing the, I have to make a magazine.
And to be fair, Shane did get back. I mean, we all just got back from TGS. I just got back yesterday, but yeah, Shane came back into a shitstorm. We had to
Shane
do
came back, Shane came back kind of late. He could have come back sooner.
I
think
agree.
he made his own bed.
And Mark, you know how it is.
Having
been in print, you know how it is. Now that you've come over to online, we're always on deadline. Is that not true?
That is true.
So
Indeed.
So what you're saying is Shane is a pansy.
Yeah. Well, we already knew that part. I'm not.
You're just trying to get it.
Anything.
You're trying to make it so he has to be on every week. Otherwise, everybody goes off on him.
I mean, he is kind of superstar. I mean, you know,
he's true.
He's part of the. If it's not a triumvirate? What's a four-person?
Quadra something.
Tetrumvirate.
We'll think of when we think of that word, we'll patent it and tie it into.
Everyone's like, "Oh my God, Garnet didn't bust out with a crazy Garnet word." So anyway, that's Jeremy Parrish who you just heard, and we brought Jeremy in because he is actually, believe it or not, I know the Japanophiles are going to go nuts, but he is a Halo master.
That's right.
I would not call myself a master. Have you seen my online ranking scores?
You know what?
Not so good.
It's not just about the online ranking scores, though, is it?
Well,
for some people it is. For some people, there's this, this element of machismo where you have to be the best. I'm not the very best.
Machismo?
Machismo.
You can say that with a
machismo. You say it with a Latin accent.
Yeah.
You're kind of a Halo historian, though, if you will, like
a Bungie historian.
The marathon references not lost on you.
Not at all.
Yeah, as they are even to kind of.
How about
me.
this shameless plug? As the person who read everything that you wrote during all of our coverage on Halo 3, I thought it was really well written. I enjoyed it, so I was like, hey, let's make sure Jeremy's on the show. There you go.
Well, thanks. Now my heart is warm.
Yeah, it would be like 40 minutes of silence with Shane here. To be honest, the second
You know what would make
segment.
Halo 3 better? 6 axes.
No.
Okay, that's going a little far.
Yeah, that's probably going a little far, yeah. So anyway, that's Mark, of course. Mark's here, and then now that we're back in San Francisco, we have John with us as well. So
Yay.
we're in excellent shape for this show. So here's what we're going to do today. First segment, we're going to do What You've Been Playing, a special not entitled Halo 3 edition, just because in the second segment, of course, we're going to go into all things Halo 3. We're going to give you our impressions.
Boy, you're all stupid with what we think of Halo.
And I also, we've got a bunch of stuff from the community, like some first impressions, and then it's interesting to see how some posters actually came back after their first impressions and gave some additional commentary on how they were liking the game. There's both sides of the coin. I didn't go one way or the other. And then in third segment, we have news. We have plenty of news to get to. So let's get it going.
Let's get it on.
Let's get it on. John, we haven't talked to you in a while. What you been playing, dude? You've got
what
like
you been
2
doing?
weeks.
Yeah,
what you been doing? He's been building IKEA furniture.
I've been building IKEA furniture. I had a chest of drawers that I put together, like a desk drawer thing.
Mm-hmm.
I swear it had 1,000 pieces in the box.
Did you, when you finished it, were there any pieces left over? That's the key.
Yes, there were.
Oh, shit.
But I think it was intentional.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's what people tell themselves to make themselves feel better. I don't think IKEA makes their money. I think they ship maybe extra screws, but not extra pieces. So
we have some tables that were missing some legs.
Wait. No, that's a little extreme.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
How do you wind up with tables missing?
They delivered too many tabletops and not enough legs.
That's a lot of phone books right there.
Yeah. So, we had like 130 boxes. Because, like, everything from IKEA, you buy a desk, it doesn't come in a box. It comes in, like, 12.
Of course, right.
Right.
I thought you guys had the key deal figured out with, like, the guys in the back of the shop who were going to come put it together for half the price.
We did. There were some guys came and helped us. So we didn't have to screw everything together. Because Ira is not so handy.
Really?
The screwdriver.
So what have
at all.
what have you been playing that does not involve an Allen wrench?
Well, predictably, it's a busy time of year, so all I'm getting commissioned to write about is fucking racing games.
Yes.
I play. Well, let's do the quick one first. Sega Rally Revo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think Sega has a hell of a nerve charging $60 for.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's because it's the
Sega.
same old game? Or?
Yeah. Well, I think some people want to think that it's kind of an entry-level noob racing game.
Yeah.
But it has classic Sega Rally controls, so it's like you're skidding around on ice regardless of what you're doing. So you're going to be bouncing down the tunnel basically the whole time, and it gets a bit infuriating. And there's none of the stuff that we've come to expect from car games the last couple of years. No mods, no garage, no anything. It's just a very simple, like, really beautiful remake of Sega Rally.
But it has mud deformation physics. That's got to count for something. No?
Yes, it does.
It counts for a bullet point.
Look,
at least.
it's a very good. It's nostalgic fan service dressed up in next gen gorgeousness.
Yeah, see, playing the hands-on builds that we've had, that's what I actually thought was cool. I'm a big Sega Rally fan,
Right.
so I really
so
enjoyed
I think
that
as a
part
big
of
Sega
it.
Rally fan, it's not a reimagining, as an update of what we all loved in the mid '90s. I think it's great, but it's still a mid '90s game dressed up in modern graphics. So I think $60 for that is a bit of a stretch.
Okay, I mean, I can maybe buy you on the price thing. I can actually totally buy you on the price thing. But here's their argument.
I would pay $35 as a download for this game.
So is it also a matter of there's just not enough content there? Because you said all the extra stuff isn't there. Are there not many tracks? Is it?
I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. It's exactly what you would expect from. I mean,
the pyramid looked big when they
Right.
were showing us the pyramid, the pyramid, by the way, is like the structure of the single-player game. There's all these races that lead to the top of the pyramid, which is the ultimate super championship.
Mm-hmm. But it's a very solid sort of, okay, it's Sega Rally, only prettier.
That was. I think that closed that.
So
that closed
solid,
the subject on that one.
competent. But I think one of the things, if they think this is going to be a hit, I think they're mistaken, because I think people that remember Sega Rally fondly are going to be all over it, and they're going to fawn over it, and it's going to be like, oh my god, it's exactly how it's how it looks, how you want to remember Sega Rally looking, but it didn't.
Well,
Yeah. You have this image of Sega Rally being this gorgeous game, and when you
Right.
go back and look at it, it was kind of like not.
Well, is there any place? Is there any place in this world anymore for just an arcade racer? Because I've played the last couple Ridge Racers, and I feel kind of like I feel like what you're describing, which is kind of like, okay, this is okay for what it is, but it's kind of the same
But
thing.
what Ridge 7 had that kind of expanded. It had the whole car collectathon thing. Like you could go, and there'd be a lot of cars that you could go through. I mean, in Rally, there's not an enormous number of cars either, but it did actually remind me a lot of Ridge Racer. It's that no damage, bouncing off the walls, very arcadey, very twitchy controls. It's like
I like all that stuff, but I almost feel like I don't. With Ridge Racer, at least specifically, I felt like I didn't need another new version of it yet. Like the graphics weren't enough of a jump that I needed to own this, and the little changes in the boost system and that kind of stuff didn't make it worth. Okay, this is like a whole new.
But
game.
it's been a long time since I played Sega Rally, and I like Sega Rally.
Which is why I think that if it had been a high-priced, like, premium DLC, we would have all been falling over ourselves for it.
But this is too big. Come on. I mean, you can't just pawn it off as DLC. It doesn't drop that far, does it? Really?
I think if this was a DLC game, it would be one of the best things. Particularly, like, if it was a PlayStation Network game, it would be up there, sort of Warhawk caliber. You'd be okay paying $30+ for it. But as a $60 disc game, you gotta fucking love Sega Rally. And I don't think there's that many people that feel that strongly about Sega Rally.
Yeah, I mean, again, I will fully agree with you on the whole subject of the pricing. Okay, I can see where you're coming from in there, but I have such fond memories of playing Sega Rally on Dreamcast because at that time,
Play the demo.
Yeah, I know. I played the demo. It's cool. I'm looking forward to playing the whole thing. We'll have this argument later when I played it, when I played the full version.
So what's the not so short game that you are playing?
PGR 4.
Yeah.
Which, when I saw it at E3, I'd sort of dismissed as being boring.
Right? We've kind of already taken some heat for maybe prematurely dissing it.
And early on, it is boring. But it gets not boring, but you got to stick with it.
Well,
it gets not boring in the tracks or in
everything. They've taken a long hard look at the car list. They've taken a long hard look at the track structure and the game structure. The way the career mode unfolds is very different. It's got a lot of There's a lot of community-focused stuff in it now, and the way that you can, posting ghosts and stuff. There's PGRnations.com is launching soon, and it's going to be tracking everyone's performance, and also tracking you based on your location. So it's actually one of the social functions is it's actually rating countries against each other.
Ooh, that's kind of cool.
So if you can declare yourself from any country that you want to, and then you're essentially in this meta team.
Oh, cool.
Which isn't a clan or anything, but it's like if you've decided you're American, you are contributing to overall the American performance.
So wait, do you declare yourself as British or American? This is an important question.
It's British still.
What the hell? Come on.
I'm not a citizen yet.
Really?
Not yet, no.
Oh, I thought you were. I'm sorry.
I'm just a resident alien.
So you're a British expat.
I am, yeah.
I did not know that.
Don't let him fool you.
So
deep down, John,
true Brit,
still flies the Union Jack.
Exactly, Union Jack underpants everything.
Wow.
So it starts off, and you're like, it's just like this is just a retread of PGR with rain, which is gratuitously overdone. It rains all the fucking time in PGR4 because all the cars have been like waxed a zillion times, so the water beads on them.
But all the rain makes you feel at home, right?
Well, yeah, it's like
I'm just back in London.
Yeah. And early on, I'm like, they've sort of tweaked the kudos system, and I don't. In PGR3, did the kudos, was that the economy in the game as well? Did you buy cars with kudos in PGR3? I don't remember.
I think you did. I think you did actually.
So in this, you're
right. It's a good question.
The incentive to do the power slides and everything is you accumulate the kudos points, which turn into currency, which you buy car packs with. And early on, it's like it's the same as in PGR3. You're like, I can never pull off enough stuff, and the tracks are too narrow, and I keep banging on the side and losing it. And then, as the tracks open up, they get wider until eventually you unlock Nürburgring again, and it's the full Nürburgring, and there you can go fucking crazy.
Which was the most fun part of PGR3 too. But it kills me that you're still, in these slot car.
Right.
Tracks
so
for
you
so
still
much of the game.
You still have to play PGR4 for a couple of hours before you get there. But when it starts opening up more F1 style tracks, and you like the first time I drove on Nürburgring, I think it like dropped me in an M5.
Pretty cool.
And you could get it up to 180 on the straights, and you could slide for like a few hundred yards, and you'd start racking up the points. And at that point, you start to think, oh, maybe it does have something. And the bikes as well. I was like,
oh yeah, that's the big.
Yeah, the cars versus
now.
Bikes thing. It's not as, it doesn't make as big of a deal of it in the career mode as we'd been led to believe in the pre-release. Like very often you're in a race and there's a bunch of cars and a few bikes, and the first time you ride a bike, it's the most nauseous of a game has made me ever.
Wait, which camera were you using?
Well, you have to really find the one that works for you,
right?
Because. Like, I know you race PGR, you always do the in-car cockpit thing.
Yeah, but behind the windscreen on the bikes I could not get it down at all.
So if you race the bikes in this, because unlike the car in the cars, the camera never tilts, even if the car is tipping on its suspension.
Right.
It's always flat. But on bikes, it tips all the way. So the camera tips, but then when you're in cockpit, you're in helmet. So as the scenery is tipping, your head is tipping counter based on the physics model. So you got the road tipping one way and your head tipping the other.
Yeah.
And it's just
a little too real,
super sensitive, and you're like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool, but it's really hard to judge.
And all of the chase cams tip as well. So if you're behind the bike, it's not as the model of the bike is leaning. It's leaning the camera with it, so the chase cam leans on the physics system as well.
Right.
So the only one I could handle was the low camera.
Oh, really?
The front wheel, basically the wheel cam.
Right.
Because it tips, and you only have to focus on one thing.
So do you think, like, I was talking to somebody about this at TGS. I can't remember if it was you, Garnet, or not, but. I know PGR is a very different game from Forza, but I kind of sense an apathy. Like it's kind of surprising to me that PGR is coming out so soon, like next week, because it is a major
PGR
franchise.
Which one was late?
Oh,
Forza was late.
Yeah, Forza was late.
Right.
I mean, that was the whole argument. Forza missed
they were
its
supposed
window.
to be a year apart.
Right. Well, and they're very different games, right? I mean, PGR is much more.
But I think the original Microsoft Game Studios plan was Forza 1 year, PGR the next, then Forza, so that there's some space. But with there being only less than 6 months between them.
Do you think that
it's a little compressed?
And they have more in common than ever. Like the community stuff, there's more in common. There's 120 cars in PGR4, which is up there, similar to Forza. I mean, there's some old stuff like D-type Jags, and so they've followed some of the GT type stuff, and there's like, I don't know how many bikes there are, but there's a bunch of bikes. But then the cars go all the way through Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and then there's a T1 in there as well. You know, that crazy thing that looks like an F1 car.
Yeah, that's cool.
So do you think that's gonna like eaten away a little bit from the excitement and maybe even sales? Like that people, even if they're different kinds of racing, that people are like, well,
I think what it does is it will erode those people that were just craving a racing game that aren't real gearheads, because it's enough less that, you know,
it's enough less.
So like Forza,
I see what you're saying, though,
ends up, I mean, to get the most out of Forza, you have to kind of take advantage of the full-on simulation aspect of it, and because you can only play it up to a certain extent, treating it like an arcade game. So it's a simulation that dumbs itself down, whereas PGR is increasingly an arcade game that's getting more complicated. And they're sort of getting to a point where they're going to meet in the middle. And they kind of do on this one.
Which after going to Polyphony last week?
That was last week.
My brain still...
It's only been like a week for you guys.
I know. I just wait till you see Gran Turismo 5 Prologue.
Yeah.
It reminded me again of how perfected they have, why they're the top. You know why Gran Turismo always stays on top is because they are so adept at making that game work in different ways for different people. Whether you want to play it, you know, with simulation tires and a super high performance, you know, physics model, or if you just want to get the feel of driving the car and turn on the assists.
Yeah.
They really have that down. And wait till you play it, John. Actually play it in cockpit view.
How structured it? Because one of the things I've ever since I played Burnout Paradise recently, I've noticed that the structured nature of racing games is looking increasingly archaic.
Sure.
And something about PGR is it drops you into this career mode that is very siloed. You're in these little mini championships that are 3, 4, 5 races at a time, and it's like, now do the cone challenge, now do the race against 7 other things, now do the time challenge, now do the hot lap. And it's like, it feels so confined. After you've played an open world racer, when you go back to it, it's like, geez, it feels so like old school now.
I think you're unfortunately going to still see that on structured racing games, and Gran Turismo is definitely going to be a structured racing game until somebody figures out how to do a big wide open racing game like that. But don't let that dissuade you from it. It's pretty awesome. I cannot wait. Let me just say, I cannot wait for 5 Prologue to get here.
Oh, cool.
So,
and then still playing Warhawk, still playing Glory Days 2.
Really? So you got so Nick totally sold you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just playing it. I've been getting the ferry to work a lot lately, and that's been the one in my DS for a while, and I just keep going back to it. It's hard. Cool. No, he didn't say how hard it was.
Really?
Jesus.
Nick's very quiet, but he's a pretty serious gamer. You know.
Yeah, it gets hard fast.
Yeah. All right.
I'm going to leave that one alone.
Hard and fast, Mark.
It gets hard fast.
Yeah.
That's why they call it Glory Days.
Exactly.
So Jeremy,
never mind.
Let's get as far away from racing as possible. I'm guessing whatever you've been playing by your general silence has absolutely nothing to do with racing games.
I'm still waiting for a Gran Turismo that I can pick up and play and enjoy. So far, not much luck. But that's okay.
So what have you been picking up and playing?
Well, in my dreams, I've been playing Metal Gear Solid 4 because the little bit of time I had last week with that game made me so very happy. They finally said, hey, maybe we should make a control scheme that actually works for this increasingly convoluted game we've created. And all of a sudden, everything's streamlined. Everything works so great. I'm sure you talked about this to death last week with Ryan here, but...
Well, kind of. We actually, because we talked about it on the show, we didn't actually... the 1UP show, we didn't talk too much about it on 1UP Yours.
Yeah,
but
so we had...
we talked about Metal Gear a lot last week.
But you know what we didn't cover? We really didn't cover the controls well, and I think that you're hit on a big point there.
No, Ryan actually said, when he gave us our demo, that the Metal Gear Solid series has been built around the 2D controls they used in Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, but it's not a 2D game. I mean, the first game, Metal Gear Solid, was pretty much a top-down game, very 2D with 3D graphics. But after Metal Gear Solid 2, everything became much more intricate and convoluted. And so you got to Metal Gear Solid 3 where you had sneaking, you had camouflage, you had close quarters combat, and it was just a complete mess. You'd have to hit 4 buttons to do a jump out and shoot at someone.
Right.
Now all of that's been streamlined. So if you're up against a wall and your gun is out, you hit triangle once and you jump out. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean,
the close quarters combat, when you want to use your gun, you hold down the left trigger, and that brings up your gun, and then you use the right trigger to shoot. It's very sensible, very 3D game, very first-person shooter kind of, but it still works within the Metal Gear context. But if you want to do close quarters combat, instead of having to fuss around with the D-pad like you did in Metal Gear Solid 3, what you do is you take your finger off the weapon trigger, the L trigger, and then just attack with the right trigger. And instead of using your weapon, you'll use close quarters combat attacks. And if you're holding a knife or whatever, you can do special maneuvers. And they're all very streamlined, very simple. The biggest complaint I had in MGS3 about using CQC was that it was analog button sensitive, so I'd want to stun someone because I was always going for the no kills. But if you press the circle button too hard, you'd snap someone's neck or cut their throat, and that was really frustrating. Now you do the submission move where you grab someone and pin them on the ground, and you kind of choke them with your arm. And if you hold it for 5 seconds, you stun them. If you hold it for 10, then you kill them. So there's a lot more control. It's one button CQC, and you can even do CQC if you're holding a larger weapon like a rifle or a bazooka RPG or something.
That's cool.
Whereas you couldn't do that before. You don't have as many options if you're holding a large weapon because you need a hand free to do the more advanced moves. So there's kind of an advantage to running around with just a pistol if you're really interested in doing the CQC and really making the most of that. But you still have the options. So if someone corners you and you have a rifle out, you don't have to switch to something else. You can, attack them with the rifle and choke them with the butt of the gun or something.
It's interesting to me because it sounds like the game has really embraced the evolution of like you were saying, moving from, we're just taking a 2D game and making it 3D to really being now, we're completely in this world. We understand it. We've learned all this from 2 and from 3.
Well, especially from 3, because that was where they added the 3D camera. It stopped being top-down forced view. And once you actually went into 3D, it worked much better, but you still realized, these controls don't make sense.
So I'm so looking forward to it, because I've said it before, but the reason that I've always loved the idea of Metal Gear but not loved the game is that every time I play it, I feel like there's a little bird on my shoulder telling me, you're playing it wrong, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, so what we did, I think what we said last week that I think does sum it up is, and goes to what you're saying, Jeremy, is instead of saying, okay, this is how Metal Gear has done it, how can we fit these new game things into it, they basically said, all right, nothing is sacred, is what Ryan Payne says.
Yeah, Ryan basically said that they brought him on as the American advisor to basically say, Americans have more experience with this kind of game. Tell us what they want. Tell us what your people want from this kind of game.
Your people,
and
I love it.
So he's been kind of advising them and giving them suggestions, and they've redesigned the interface based on that input.
But this
and
is
it's
throwing
really made a big
everything
difference.
out and starting again. I mean, it's something that we're seeing a lot in game design right now, and I think it's a really smart thing to do because so many things to do with games desperately cling to these long-standing legacies, and it's great that everyone. Metal Gear was doing it for. One of the reasons it became so convoluted was it was just now we need to be able to do this, and we've only got 8 buttons.
Right.
Well, not to get into the Halo chat already, but when we first went up there, they were really nervous because they did change the controls with Halo 3 more built around the dual wielding and you can reload this weapon or that weapon.
Right, somewhat, but it takes all of maybe 30 minutes to get used to the changes, even if you've been playing the games recently, older games recently.
And it does.
All right, we're doing this in the next segment.
But I'll just say this: just changing that
context
was a huge deal to them, and they were super nervous about how people would take it. And in retrospect, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal because it works well.
I think gamers respond beloved franchises. I think gamers respond to good changes.
Yes.
I think the fear is, well, what if we're But with Metal Gear, they couldn't possibly made it any worse.
No. Based on what I've seen in the way of responses, people initially will look at changes when they first hear about them to beloved franchises and say, oh, no, this can't possibly work. Look at Zelda Phantom Hourglass.
Gamers react like that?
No. Yeah, believe it or not. But yeah, when people first heard about the stylus controls in Phantom Hourglass, they were like, no, this can't possibly work.
Let's
but
take Resident Evil. I can't tell you how much I loved Resident Evil 4. I adored Resident Evil 4, and so much of it, I think, was because I could play it and feel like I knew what I was doing and had such a good time with it.
And I can tell that MGS4 is going to work. It's going to go over well because even though they've changed the interface, it still has an intrinsic Metal Gear-ness about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're using similar buttons or similar, like the same buttons for similar commands. To crouch, you still use the X button, but the way they've redesigned it makes so much more sense, and it just works much better.
You guys all seen it now. Is it going to be huge? Because I mean, Metal Gear as a franchise is as it's held in this high regard, its sales have actually crept downwards.
Well, in America, I mean, 3 did really 3. A lot of people think 3 came out, I think, the same time as GTA.
It was not.
Yeah, it got kind of lost in the shuffle. It was a really great game, but it's Japan sales. When you add up like Japan, America, Europe, it was still it still did really well. And I think 4. There's much more excitement around 4, like there was similar to 2.
Plus, what else is there to play on PS3?
Well, and that's kind of the thing.
But do you think that's the reason that it's the first of this generation?
I think it is.
Why?
I think it is a big reason why it was that around Metal Gear Solid 2. I think it's getting a lot of excitement because it's showing what the PS3 can do. It's a showpiece title. It's like a pride title. It's a killer app that I think people are going to buy hardware for. So I think it does have a lot of that excitement around. Where by the time Metal Gear Solid 3 came out, it was like, okay, it's a PS2 game.
I think the one thing Kojima needs to do to keep interest high is stop showing how weird he is. Because that last trailer from TGS with the monkey and all the crazy ass stuff, the farting guy. Yeah, I'm just like, okay, this is not what people are getting excited about. They're getting excited about the 2 Metal Gears screaming at each other.
Yeah.
That's what everyone was pumped about. They weren't so crazy about the monkey passing gas. So maybe a little less of that, kind of keep it hidden under the carpet until everyone actually buys the game. And so anyway, that's what I've been playing in my dreams.
Yes.
What I've actually been playing...
Oh, wait. We weren't even talking about what you've been playing.
Right. What I've actually been playing has been Crisis Core, and I'm only 2 hours into that. But I'm really not sure what to think about it yet.
Really? Because it's selling a hell of a lot of PSPs in Japan.
Everybody, you're on the
That's
train.
That's because it's a Final Fantasy VII game.
You're on the train there, and everybody who has a PSP out there
I will say, I saw it at TGS, and I'm going to play it next week. I think we're going to cover it on the show, on the One-Up show next week. But what I saw of it at TGS, graphically, and this should be no surprise from Square, but looks amazing. It's doing stuff on the PSP where you're like, wow.
Really good. Yeah. The music is really good. Some of it's familiar Final Fantasy VII remixes. Some of it's kind of unique, but it's got kind of this cheesy wailing guitar style to it that totally fits the cheesy anime style.
The knock that I heard about it being in Japan from different people, and I've heard both sides of the spectrum,
is that there's not much gameplay.
I knew the butt was coming.
It was the win button, the circle win button.
Are you
thing
watching it rather than playing it?
That's not quite true. You use 2 buttons.
Oh, 2
in
buttons.
Crisis Core. You use the circle to win, and you use the square button to avoid losing. It's very important. The circle button attacks, and basically you have a menu of attacks at the bottom. You have your sword attack, and then you have different materia that you've equipped to cast magic, and then you have special attack materia and items. And basically you use the L and R triggers to cycle through which attacks you want, kind of real time on the fly, and then you hit the circle button and you'll execute that against whichever enemy happens to be in your crosshairs, which basically is whichever enemy is in the middle of the screen. It's kind of loose and not very precise. And so you use your sword attacks and your magic
for a handheld
stuff.
that way, yeah.
I think they could have done a little more with a little more sophistication. But anyway, you use the square button to roll and evade attacks, and basically winning battles comes down to smashing enemies, hitting attack 3 times for a combo, and then waiting for a second, watching when the enemy starts to go into an attack animation, and then dodging as they do the animation. So far, it's really, really simplistic, and it's kind of cool, but at the same time, during battles, your enemies are just running around haphazardly and not really attacking in any kind of coordinated way. They're just running around like they're panicking. And having been playing so much Halo 3, I'm maybe I could have done with any kind of AI on my enemies. Any AI whatsoever would have been great.
Right.
So that part's a little bit disappointing.
How far into it are you right now?
Not too far. I'm in the second area, which is Like the first area is basically a complete reprise of the intro to Final Fantasy VII, where there's the train, you hop off, you fight guys with guns. Like it's totally. Apparently, a lot of the game is like this, where it's like parallels to Final Fantasy VII, but with a different character.
So there's probably two ways to look at this, right? One of them would be as looking at it as a game, and the other one is
but as fan service.
And that's the way we're going to look at it, right?
And that's pretty much what people want from a Final Fantasy VII product. It's its own brand of strange fan service that caters to these people who are nostalgic for a 10-year-old RPG. And because for so many people that was their first RPG,
right.
Like there is this really strong nostalgia for that. And in terms of Final Fantasy VII products that I've seen so far, like this is hands down better than Advent Children, which was a god-awful mess of a movie that I detest with every fiber of my being. And Dirge of Cerberus, which was a well-intended attempt to create an action shooter that just completely failed.
Other than watching Skip smash controllers, in which case it was a big win.
Yeah, that was the best part of Dirge of Cerberus.
So it's definitely
and then there's the cell phone game, which I have, whatever.
Right. It's better than complete shit, is what you're saying.
Yeah, basically, I played this game, and I kind of enjoy it, and so that puts it way above the other Final Fantasy VII compilation
When's it out here?
That's a good question.
Whenever they localize all the dialogue, which is mostly what the game is. There's a lot of dialogue, a lot of voice acting. Sadly, I guess we won't get Gackt's voice acting in the U.S. version.
Shame.
Maybe they'll find the U.S. equivalent, and what would that be? Muse?
Jeez. I don't even know.
Who's the American equivalent of Gackt?
What?
do we? I
don't think we have one of those.
Yeah.
A glam rocker. David Bowie, maybe. I don't know.
Morrissey? I don't know.
Morrissey. Yeah, no, actually, that might actually be
Morrissey. I'd buy.
I don't know. So, what else? Anything else?
I started up a review of Revenant Wings, but I'm like an hour into that, so I don't have any salient opinions yet. Yeah, it's basically Heroes of Mana, but with Final Fantasy 12 characters.
That's what I've heard about it,
which is okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't, anything that I played, I was at TGS, obviously, we talked about it all last week. I got back yesterday at like noon or 1 o'clock, had my Halo Legendary waiting for me, so that's all I've really played since then, Garnet. So
we'll hop into that. I'll close this out with two that we've kind of brought up before. First one is Silent Hill Origins.
Yeah, which Shane seems pretty hot on.
So at the very beginning of it, when you boot it up, it has like this little warning that Shane talked about that says, and I thought he was joking, but it really does. It tells you to play it in the dark with headset on. And so I tell you, I thought there was no way you could do survival horror on PSP because part of survival horror is like the whole presentation on the screen, getting you totally drawn in. If you do like they say, because I was playing it in the plane on the way to and from Tokyo, where they dim the lights, it's all dark, right?
Right.
And it totally worked. Really? I was stunned. It absolutely works as a Silent Hill game.
Were you grabbing the hand of the person next to you?
Did you call the stewardess for help? Ding, ding. I'm scared. Please help.
It's pretty cool that, it's pretty cool that as developers are getting their, really sophisticated in doing PSP games, the quality of the visuals they can put on PSP are pretty damn impressive.
Yeah.
Because this relies entirely on lighting and especially like the shadows that are cast from the lighting, and it really, really works. I mean, amazingly. So like when you turn on your little, it has the classic, clip-on pocket flashlight, and when you're wandering around Silent Hill with that flashlight on, it is even better than it was on PS1. Like, I played the PS1 game, I've said on the podcast, I played the first one, that's really the one I played, and I enjoyed it. And, I'd say that this is definitely very nostalgia-driven.
Right.
It's very much...
it's following the mold. They're not reinventing. This is not Resident Evil 4.
No, not at all. No.
Not even close. It's more like Resident Evil 3 or Remake or Resident Evil 0.
Yeah, something like that.
I think this would be equivalent to a Code Veronica.
So, the only downside I have to it is that, it's frustrating in places. The combat gets...
frustratingly hard.
Yeah, and I've just gotten to a point where I've played enough games that I really don't like dying and having a long way to my last checkpoint.
Right.
Like, I get to a point, and maybe it's part of it being just, older or whatever. It's just I don't want to have to repeat the same areas over and over and over, and I don't want to have to get pissed off wandering around trying to find a goddamn checkpoint so that I can save and then go play in the area. I want to be able to play in an area of a game and enjoy enjoy it and not worry about whether or not I'm going to run out of ammo, run out of weapons, or die and have to go all the way back to some damn checkpoint that was 30 minutes ago.
Shane did say he's gotten further into the game that he was actually very conscious of, there's health or there's ammo. He was starting to get it becomes real resource.
And doesn't that sound like old school survival horror? So I think that's actually part of what they were going for. I think it's part of the nostalgia. I just don't know how much that completely appeals to me anymore, and maybe it's just changing tastes or something. But I loved Resident Evil 4, and I don't remember Resident Evil 4 treating me like that.
Yeah, Resident Evil 4 was pretty good about that. I mean, I'm of two minds. I mean, it's a balancing act, I think, to me personally, because I stop caring. If I'm like blowing everything away and shooting ammo and never have to worry about health, then I lose interest as well. But I want to at least feel like I'm working for it. But I know what you mean. Like, you don't want to be, oh Christ, I just died like 6 times here. I'm playing the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I've had that happen a couple times, especially as it's gotten later in the game, because it gets pretty damn hard.
Right.
And that's kind of frustrating. Anyone who likes the Silent Hill story, though, you're going to want it because it has all the backstory. It has it's the origin story. It really is kind of cool. Well, it lays down like the background of Silent Hill, and the way they did the shift this time between the the dark world and the still screwed up but kind of normal world, where you go through mirrors, and it's really cool the way they did that. So it allows you a flexibility of switching back and forth.
You saw Silent Hill 5, right? That video that we had of it happening in real time in the new next gen version of the game. It happens like the movie,
which looks really hot.
Yeah, that looks
cool. Really cool.
That's going to be one of the cool things.
And
actually,
that was also Climax. So I mean, it seems like these guys have a definite feel for the Silent Hill vibe. Definitely have that part down. I think Silent Hill fans will be down on that. So that's cool. And like the other game I've been playing is another one of these classic series, which is Ace Combat. And the saddest part about Ace Combat is there's not that much to say about Ace Combat, because if you've seen it, it's totally gorgeous. And if you like Ace Combat, you're going to love the game. And if you don't, you're still not going to understand what people's appeal is to it.
Isn't there like a crazy story? Like, I was at the Microsoft pre-TGS thing, and it showed like a family. It showed like CG of like a family, and daddy
It's always had some wacky stories.
It was weird.
I'd say actually the story this time is less wacky than it's been before. The story is of a family where the father is a pilot in the Air Force. Their child has gone off on a school field trip, and mom is at home, and all of this happens when the first initial attack happens, so they're all separated, and you kind of bounce around and see the story of this war from their different perspectives. So it's trying to give it some oh my gosh, war is horrible and here's how it impacts people. So here's the deal. I mean, at this point,
you're not playing Ace Combat
through you flying jet fighters and blowing shit
up. Right. There's no connection.
John, if you look very closely down you can see the mom picking up the daughter from soccer practice.
Oh, the horror!
Very closely. It's a tiny dot.
The potential
on the horizon
to be cool is there, but at the end of the day, we've gotten accustomed to playing games and not having this like big disconnect of cut, stop, here's the cutscene, okay, back to the game, and there's no way to avoid that in this situation.
But you can't really do like a Half-Life kind of situation where you're in a plane and there's my little daughter, I hope I don't run over her as I drive past in the cockpit.
I'm sure that in Tom Clancy's Air Combat they'll come up with some solution to get the story across.
I mean, I'm serious. They have to be stuck at like, how the fuck, okay, Ace Combat 6, like what do we do to even...
Which makes me think, why the hell was Ubisoft thinking they're at Ace Combat 6? Oh yeah, let's jump on that.
Oh my god, yeah, Ubi, that's going to be a tough road to hoe, because Ace Combat 6 does look really good. The flight models are still it's a blast to play with the jets. They're great special weapons. There's a couple of new features in the game that they have kind of tweaked it up a little bit.
What are you playing it on?
360. It's 360 exclusive.
Oh, it is?
And they've still not said anything about PS3. I mean, it's still...
Well, and those games sell. Like this
6-axis, surely.
You would think, right? But
it only works for dragons. Haven't you heard?
Oh, yeah.
An X-Wing fighter, a plane, you'd want to use a joystick.
I'm not sure what they're going to do. It may well wind up like a Ridge Racer sort of thing, because I did an interview with the Ace Combat team while we were...
There'll be an Ace Combat 7 that's like
4 months from now.
That's like almost exactly the same.
Incrementally better.
Yeah, I think you might actually wind up seeing something like that, because they were kind of hedging their bets towards that sort of thing.
Well, I'm sure the 5 Ace Combat fans are thrilled that we're talking about it, but I'm kind of bored.
That's
Well, those 5 fans, you got a lot to look forward to. It is really fun. You're going to enjoy it, and it's a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, I've been watching you play it, and I whatever, fighter planes, but I do like the way the planes handle. Like, they just have this very convincing feel of mass and a little bit of instability, like you'd expect something flying like that.
And you really get a sense, you've always had that what's 5-sided shape?
Pentagon.
There's always had that pentagon.
Like the military.
Oh, yes,
right?
that thing. You've always had that pentagon that shows you the attributes of the planes, but I always felt like it was synthetic and like you really couldn't feel it in the game. But this time, when you're flying a plane where it says stability is low, it definitely feels like a low stability plane. And when you're flying a plane
That's not what you want in a plane, I would think.
It depends. Air superiority fighter, it's very tweaky.
Okay, we've done Ace Combat. All right.
All right, we've done Ace Combat. That leads us to the end of what you've been playing special, not Halo 3 Edition, because when we come back in just a moment, we'll be doing the Halo 3 portion of the show. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Visit Adidas.com and watch as your favorite athletes prove time and time again that impossible is nothing. See their amazing stories told by the athletes that live them. And enter to win tickets to an NFL game to see Reggie Bush live in action. It's all at Adidas.com.
All right, and many of you are probably already singing the music in your sleep because that is a big part of Halo 3. We're here to talk about some Halo 3.
Not just the music, but the audio also. The audio design in general. Just a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
Except I have one complaint, because I'm playing this game in 5.1, and I find that they have not balanced, at least as well as I would like, the vocals to where they come out of the center channel strong enough. And I have a huge center channel speaker at home. I don't have as
When you're talking about the vocals, do you mean in cinema sequences, or do you mean, because the whole idea behind the voices in 5.1 is that like you can
in the
judge spatially where they are.
That totally works. In the actual cinema sequences, when I want to hear the dialogue that's being exchanged, I occasionally have trouble where I'm like, wait, what did he say? Wait, what?
Actually, I think the cinema sequence dialogue might actually be my least favorite part of the game. Some of it's kind of not so great.
I want to make sure we don't do this because I think we'll get out how we feel about the game. But if we want to start off with my complaint, like I have a little sheet here of notes that I took. One of the things
Mark McDonald brought notes.
I did bring notes. One of the things I was surprised about, like cutscenes, I'm not that into them. I'm kind of lost in the story.
Yeah, they didn't start out by saying last time on Halo 2.
Well, and it's not only that, but like the way people look, the humans especially look and talk and move. I think I've spent the last week fucking writing about Metal Gear and watching Metal Gear, and like I have new appreciation for what they're doing because the animation and the way people look is just amazing. And in Halo,
Metal Gear, I think Metal Gear Solid 4, the characters look about as like they do in Halo 3. Not that great.
Oh, I gotta show you like some comparison pictures.
Halo 3 actually comes out ahead in my opinion because the main characters are either like dudes in armor or aliens, so you don't get that uncanny valley feeling.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Secondary characters.
It's the humans where you notice it, but I don't want to dwell on that because I was surprised.
To go along with that, some of the dialogue kind of lousy.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
it tends to be a little bit Hollywood.
Let's go be a hero, or whatever the fuck it is he says at the beginning of Chapter 2. Really? Come on.
No, I think it's like, what should we tell them? Go to war. Or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Some of it,
there's a lot of like, really?
Yeah, some of it's kind of not
you
so
had to tell
great.
them something.
But I mean, the Gears, I'm sure we're going to talk about different Gears comparisons. I mean, we can definitely give it that. It's not awesome. Not really. Like, I mean,
the incidental dialogue in Halo 3, the things that people just say randomly, the
amazing.
Marines,
I love that stuff.
That's awesome. I love the fact that in this game, like what the enemies are saying actually correlates to what they're doing. Like I was under a ledge and there were some brutes and some grunts above me, and one of the brutes is like, "Go down there and flush him out," and the grunt says, "I hear and obey," and he comes down to come get me. Or I'll be up against a big pack of brutes and they'll be like,
I have a question about that incidental dialogue. We talked about it before the show.
Right.
I could have sworn they were swearing.
I thought I did think I heard fuck once, but I'm pretty sure I was wrong.
I thought a brute said something along the lines of, "It's the demon, go fuck him up," or something. That's what it sounded like.
It does. I would agree. I think I've heard it before too.
I have not heard anything like that. I've heard them say something like "you bastard, you killed him" or something, but that is the most I've heard. But I will say that they recorded a whole hell of a lot of dialogue. I think they said 60,000 lines of dialogue for this game.
Yeah.
And they said that there is going to be some dialogue that's very common and some dialogue you're not going to hear very often.
60,000 lines?
60,000.
That is crazy.
Well, and some of the stuff, it's so specific, like separate from like the just out and out funny lines, which I've laughed like way more with Halo 3 than I have any others, both from your Marines and also like with the different stuff that grunts say, especially after they kill you. It's really funny. But they've said shit so specific. I'm like, they recorded a line for that. You know, they're like, hey, sniping over here, and like stuff like that. And when you go invisible and sneak up behind them, I can't remember what the line was, but there was something about that where they had lost track of me, and then they kind of realized I appeared over here.
Yeah, they'll be like, I've lost him. Oh, I found him now.
It was like it's really really cool.
I hit a brute yesterday with a gravity hammer. And one of my Marines in my party was like, "Whoa, good hit, man! I didn't know you knew kung fu." It was, like you said, it's really specific and it's really awesome because it really makes you feel like there's a little bit of this awareness, this AI, and it's not. It's just like things are scripted, but.
Well, it has a lot of
fantastic
little tiny moments, and I think that's something that they did really, really well.
And a lot of the lines are made to not appear every time. I mean, their goal was, and I think they really hit it. They even hit it with the other games, but this one more than any is like this. I've almost played through the game. I'm up to, I think, the final level. Garnet, you are too.
Yep.
Jeremy, you finished it. John, you're still pretty early on, but you play through the game and you're like, oh yeah, this is what happened to me at that part, and you're like, oh no, I never heard that line. This is what
I mean, I'm playing on heroic now. I beat it on normal. Now I'm playing through on heroic, and I'm dying a whole lot.
I started on heroic. On Luke's suggestion, he said play it on heroic, and that's the way to play it. It is so hard.
It's really hard, but I'm dying. Like there'll be little knots of brutes or something where I die like 6 or 7 times, and every time I restart, they have different dialogue.
Right.
I take different actions sometimes, but even if I do like roughly the same thing, it's always different.
See, I can't stress enough. Like this is an important point. I started on heroic, and this is the first Halo game I've ever started on heroic, but when we played it, Jeremy, we played 2 levels and we played it on normal. This is like a completely different game.
It really is. On normal, I died a few times, but I pretty much just barreled through and didn't have any trouble.
Yes.
Now that I'm playing on heroic, like I appreciate every scrum, every skirmish as its own individually designed area. It makes me appreciate the level design so much more.
So much more.
Because I realize, just going straight through the middle is not going to do anything. So I need to like find a grav lift and jump up on a platform, or I need to go underneath in some tunnels.
It makes what I noticed was that playing on her, it made me. I've noticed becoming better at the game.
Right. Well, you have to think. You have to strategize. Like normal really is like it's kind of a misnomer because if you are a Halo fan, normal I really think is made for Joe Q Madden. It's like the person who picks up 1 game a year and like actually needs the thing to figure out if they're going to be inverted or not. They forget about that stuff. That really this is such a mass market game. That is for anybody. But if you play first person shooters at all, you have to play it on heroic. Start on heroic. Yes.
Really?
Absolutely.
You really do.
It is such a totally different game. Like
it's a brilliant shooter on heroic. On regular, it's a great shooter. It's really good. But when you play it on heroic, like you really appreciate how the enemies coordinate. You really appreciate how the levels are designed. Like I constantly find myself. Well, I'm really impressed by the fact that this Halo, unlike the previous 2, when you put it on heroic, it's not just a matter of the enemies taking more damage or doing more damage. They actually get smarter. They coordinate better. They flank you. They are more accurate with their shots. They shoot better weapons and more aggressively.
But you know what? The bulk of my complaints with the game, and I'm not saying I have a huge number of complaints with the game, but the bulk of my complaints with the game would not be related to difficulty. But they would not be related to something that would be materially altered from switching from normal to heroic or legendary.
Here's the thing, and I know this just from having played those couple of levels on normal. Like I say, I've only played the final retail on heroic, but you don't even stop to notice or appreciate things when it's on normal because you're just barreling through. So you never think like, wow, it's cool. The enemies are almost like completely different enemies depending on what weapon they're carrying.
Well, you appreciate the environment so much more because all of a sudden everything is deadly. Like you step out and a sniper's going to get you. So you appreciate every element in the environment as a piece of cover. You realize how you can utilize this cover. You realize, like, if I can make a break for this abandoned building over here, then I have like a new base of operations to approach from a different angle.
Every weapon placed, that sniper rifle becomes like, oh yeah, I kind of feel like a sniper rifle. It turns into like, holy shit, thank you God, I have a fucking sniper rifle. I need this so bad. Like, okay, I'm going to use a sniper rifle, take out these 6 guys, then I'm going to go here, do that. Like,
right. The first level of the game has a ton of sniper emplacements. I was really surprised by how tough it is.
My favorite thing of the whole game so far is the dam at the end of the first level. Like that on Heroic
so hard.
Is such a incredibly pitched battle because you have a Jackal sniper across the way, which the Jackal snipers
you have 3. There's one on the building, there's one way far in the distance, and there's one to the right.
And the snipers are so much better in this one. They don't pinpoint you every time. I haven't played it on Legendary yet, but at least in this, it's like if you stop moving and they have a shot at you, they will headshot you. But if you keep moving, then you're mostly okay.
Yeah, you'll take a hit and you'll lose your shields, but you're not dead.
So, like, I was trying to describe this earlier to somebody, and you almost need, like, a whiteboard. This is going to be hard to do on radio, but that level is so amazing because you come in through the canyon, you have snipers able to shoot at you from this, like your X-axis, and then you have other enemies with Covenant carbines, like rifles, able to shoot at you from this axis, like the Y-axis, perpendicular. And so you have to use cover as like this 3-dimensional puzzle. It's like, okay, I'm now blocked from this side. I'm going to concentrate on this side. I have to move, duck. Like there's also there's like 2 different ways to get across that part with that long damn bridge. You can go beneath it or above it. You can switch between the 2. And then there's that guy comes with the hammer. Like the first time you see the guy with the hammer, it's
pretty awesome.
So fucking sweet.
You didn't think the Jackal snipers were too tough then? Because
they're tough. I found that part really difficult because I did not have a weapon that had decent accuracy over a range. Like if I'd had a battle rifle, I could have zoomed in and taken out some of the snipers. But I had
doesn't it drop a it drops a sniper rifle right there? I mean, like because when you come in, because it does that thing where it I played on Heroic and I got because it like you drop off that ledge and that's the way it kind of cuts the level off from behind you.
Right, but you respawn up there.
Yeah, you respawn up there and there's like a tree you can hide behind. And I don't know if I just turned up. I can't remember.
But you might have had one from before. I didn't find one.
I could have sworn I killed a guy there who had a sniper rifle.
Well, let me bring this in. Super Crescendo on the message board says this. So I played the first 2 missions last night with a buddy of mine on Legendary, and dear Lord, that jungle level is unforgiving. Jackal snipers are absurdly godlike, and even if you're crouched and you think you've got the angle, you'll either see a grenade flush you out, or that Jackal will hit you in 2 shots. We died a whole bunch, and we loved every minute of it.
See, you really start to appreciate each encounter as its own set piece, and you start to strategize. Like you take one approach and you fail, so you think, okay, so I need to take it a different approach. So after a while, I started going straight after the gold brute guy and try to stick a grenade to him right away. That would take him out of the fight, and then I would like run around to a different building. In the second level, there's a scenario where you're up against just a ton of brutes, and there's a dude with a hammer at the backside. And if you like shoot at that guy and miss him, then he goes invincible and starts running after you. So my first action in that battle after a while would be to get a headshot on him. Like even with a battle rifle, a good headshot will take him out in 1 hit. And then all of a sudden the battle becomes much easier because you just have to take out his underlings.
See, I was gonna like that. I actually have that scene mentioned too. That hallway, that brute hallway, is so brilliant because, like you were talking about, you end up appreciating the level design. So you have like a straightaway thing to go at the brutes. You also have the deployable little mini man cannons that are picked up there, and you have a whole ledge going across the top. You also have these little chambers, like
there's little alcoves.
Yeah, there's
some of the alcoves have weapon deployments.
They have weapon deployments, and they also have little holes in them that you can jump through. It's like an alternate way to get through them, and like. It happened completely in that area, and it happens so often where I will go back and do the normal first-person shooter thing. Okay, I'm going to go here. I'm going to hide. I'm going to get my health back. I'm going to be fine. Like, what keeps happening on Heroic, which is so fucking great, is I hear somebody yell, and then a fucking grenade lands right in front of me. I'm like, oh crap! Or I see the little radar blip, and they are coming around the side and not giving me enough time.
That's when you listen to their dialogue, because they'll say like, "I'll flush him out with a grenade."
Right. Yeah.
And they'll toss a grenade. Here it comes, or he'll be like, "Take this with you," and here comes a spike grenade.
Right.
Something along those lines.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like everything they do.
The voice is down.
He does, doesn't he? It's pretty awesome.
Everything they do, like they broadcast it. You can predict what they're going to do. Like they'll say, "I'm coming after him," and one guy, you'll see him on the radar, and so you can come around and blast him with a shotgun or something and take him out.
Oh, the demon's here.
Exactly. See, you're pretty good too. You have a little brute blood in you.
I heard it a few times.
Yeah.
Although I have to say, so like this is a subject that's also come up on the message boards. I am a little disappointed that because of, and this could be a spoiler. So if you want to switch your ears off for a second, not having the elites in the Covenant that you're facing was a disappointment to me, because they were some of my favorite people to fight.
They were, but now the brutes serve their role, and they basically serve the same role as the elites.
They're like super elites. Like I thought the same thing.
The brutes fight differently.
But they're actually, like, you might as well forget that the brutes ever existed in Halo 2 because
those were pathetic.
Well, they're so much different. Now they basically have kind of what elites had, except for like the usually the recharging shields.
Some of them have that too.
Right.
Some of them have invincibility.
Right.
Some of them have invisibility also. So
some of them do have all that stuff, but they also have the eventual like rage thing, and they also have like an element of the unpredictability that the elites didn't have. I'm right with you where I thought that was going to bug me so much, especially when I was playing through on normal. I was like, man, I kind of miss that like kind of give and take. But now that I've played it, I have like 4 different scenes down here that are the standout set pieces, and almost all of them are like a group of brutes. Like you're up against a group of brutes.
I would say the brutes are actually more fun to fight, because with the elites on the higher levels in the previous games, like that could just be really frustrating because they had the recharging shields, and if you didn't take them down immediately, it just turned into this long drawn out experience, and you'd both be ducking for cover to let your shields recharge, and it would be stalemated after a while. But with the brutes, you don't have that, because eventually they're going to come after you.
Right,
so,
but I kind of like that because it forced you to figure out a way to break the stalemate.
It was interesting because it was almost like playing multiplayer, because you were almost equals, and you almost felt like, okay, I have to fucking outthink this guy.
Right.
I know what you mean, but I don't.
You had to drop the hammer at the end of it. If you couldn't finish the kill, then what would happen is exactly what you talked about. Is both of you would regroup, and then you started back over from square one.
But I never like shit my pants the way I shit my pants with that guy with the hammer. Like that guy with the hammer, I'm like, I don't know what he's going to do next. He might really start hauling ass at me and start swinging the hammer around. Like I think I'm going to be able to jump away in time and kind of fool him, but I'm never quite sure of it. And like that unpredictability, much less the other guys when they have the huge cannons or those other things, like you are really legitimately fucking scared of those guys.
Well, they have so many more tactics than the elites did. It's really totally
I don't know that I agree with that, but let me throw this out here for you from the Unholy Candyman on the message board. He said, this game was too damn easy. Bungie buckled under the crybabies complaining about Halo 2. I didn't buy the explanation Bungie made about the brutes. They were a lot harder in Halo 2, and the same goes for the Jackals.
No,
this guy...
Are we playing the same game?
Jackals, yes.
He must be playing on normal.
Yeah, he's like, I played Halo 2 on normal, and it was really tough, and now I'm playing it on easy, and it's super easy. What the hell?
Jackals, he might have a point just because the Jackals, again, I haven't played on Legendary.
They were a little too
Legendary on Halo 2. It was headshot if you were open, but brutes, no way in hell, no matter what difficulty you're talking about.
Yeah, the only challenge the brutes posed was that they were damage sponges. Like
in Halo 2,
pump bullets into them.
Well, in Halo 2, if you had the Needler, you could take down brutes all day long. I mean, all you had to do was dump a half clip.
And now you can only carry one Needler at a time. You can't dual wield the Needler. So all of a sudden, like that stops being this, like almighty weapon. It's really still very powerful if you could pump a lot of bullets or needles into them. But
I have to say, I actually pick up the Needler way more often now. And
I used it all the time in Halo 2, but this time
I didn't in Halo 2, but in 3 I actually seek it out.
Oh man, in 2 you can dump brutes with it, but in 3 you have to use it like in combination. So against the armored brutes, this really good combination I've been using is use a ballistic weapon like one of the machine guns or the assault rifle to take off their armor, and then once you get their armor off, then dump the needles into them, because then it gets them right away.
Well, if you can do the red mist thing where you make make the needles explode, then that'll take down pretty much any brute instantly.
Right. Yeah.
But it's harder to do that because you don't have as much ammunition this time, so you have to be more conservative.
But it also fires so fast. Like I feel like, here's what I've found out. I don't know if you guys will agree, but the plasma pistol to me is now the new Needler. Like the plasma pistols
Totally
all
agree.
over the place. I never pick it up. I'm like,
yeah.
Like, not going to kill somebody with it. You don't have to take down elite shields a lot. So I'm like,
Yep.
and it will knock off the brute's armors. It'll knock away the jackal's shields. But I find myself favoring all of these other weapons.
Well, yeah, there are
that.
so many new weapons and the X button items in this game. It really changes the dynamics of combat. It's no longer... This is especially noticeable with the Flood, because in the previous games, the Flood, like the first game, I had a shotgun and a pistol.
Right.
The second game, it was a shotgun and a sword. But those weapons, one, are harder to find now, and two, the Flood fight differently. So I found myself in the Flood stages... you haven't been there yet. Sorry. There's flood. There's flood in this game.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to
really?
say.
Surprise! There will be
I
flood.
find myself in the flood stages fighting totally differently, and part of that's because they're no longer just like rush at you, but they actually use tactics.
Right.
But also just because I have different weapons, and some of the new weapons are really, really effective in different scenarios.
Yeah, I just to stay on the Flood, like I love that the infection form, I think they are, the little creepy crawly guys, actually, like, you have to kind of care about them.
Oh, you
now.
have to, kind of? You have to care about them a lot.
Right, because they actually infect, and in real time morph, which I think, I'm not sure, but I think that was the idea from the beginning.
It was the idea, yeah. They did that before, but now you can actually see it, and it's more tangible.
Right.
And you also find yourself being as destructive as possible when you take down an infected form, because if you hit it hard enough, it'll, disintegrate, and then they can't revive it.
And those the big explodey guys that explode into them make a hell of a lot, are a lot more scary now, because not only do you have to blow them up, but you should probably blow them up with a grenade, because if you just normally blow them up, they're going to blow up into a huge thing of infection forms.
The napalm grenade is what's
that
best
you get
against
later
the
on.
infection.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
when you get into the little pustules that are just built into the walls that release the infection forms.
Right.
Toss a napalm at those.
That's the level I'm at right now. Actually,
and maybe
easier.
maybe the Flood was always meant to be the star of the show, so to speak. But I got to tell you, to my eyes, the degree of artwork and design and development that went into like the Flood forms this time outstrips they are the most attractive, well thought out, completed.
By attractive, you mean really disgusting looking.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right. No, obviously, but I'm saying, but to the eye, they're so well detailed and they're so well thought out and conceived, and the whole package comes together so well that the Flood is so much more compelling than it had been before.
Yeah, when you see a human corpse mutate and bubble into a Flood, and its face is like,
it's phenomenal. It's
horrible, but great.
Well, previously they were sort of an extension of some of the ridiculous creatures in Marathon. In a lot of ways,
guess.
Pretty much, they would just rush straight at you.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've not got there yet, but does it justify why these sort of mindless things are suddenly using strategy?
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
because they all speak to you with Gravemind's voice. Like the Flood now talk to you when they see you. They're like,
okay,
now I see you.
So that
and it's kind of creepy.
You get a feeling
actually.
that they're being controlled. Because before they were just
it's like the
animalistic
hive mind,
chasing you.
Now it's like the hive mind has taken control and they're actually approaching you.
There's a very Borg vibe going on there, definitely.
Right.
I will say though, like elements of the story, and I say this having only played it through the first time, which was always, I didn't catch a lot of what went on in Halo 1 and 2, and probably a lot of the reason people love the story and still talk about it so much is that so much of it is left up to like repeated viewings and interpretation, but like a lot of elements of the story, I'm kind of like those terminals and stuff. I'm kind of like, wait, what?
The terminals, I think, are for me.
Right,
they're like, you love Marathon.
Right.
Here are some cryptic text blocks that you can read and enjoy.
But even a lot of the cutscenes, I'm like, okay, I know we're going after this guy. I know we're going after the Prophet, but a lot of it is kind of confusing. I can only imagine. I mean, I've been talking and thinking and writing about Halo 1 and 2 in the last few months to like the average gamer that picks up Halo or doesn't pick up Halo except when the new game comes out. I'm sure people are kind of confused. Like I don't think they did as great of a job sort of explaining and getting people up to speed. Much less.
Speaking of that, remind me why the Elite aren't in Halo 3.
Well, they're
okay. Big time spoiler alert if you haven't finished like 1 and 2 or whatever.
Well,
in which case,
I think we're safe.
Catch up to the year 2005,
yes,
buddy.
Trying to be polite.
Right.
Trying to be polite for people out there on the interwebs.
I think we're safe spoiling the end of Halo 2 by now, but yeah. So basically, like the elites near the end of Halo 2, like they kind of team up with the humans, and
the reason they do that is because they're betrayed by their leadership.
I do remember now.
The political,
yes.
political struggle with
stuff with
inside the Covenant.
The Brute transition.
The Brutes kind of take over as like the guardians of the
prophets,
of the prophets and all of the Covenant. But right, so there is like one level in Halo 3 where you're fighting alongside the elites, which is kind of cool. Like I do think it definitely, Halo 3 to me very much felt like a synthesis of what worked in Halo 1 and what worked in Halo 2, which is shouldn't be a surprise, but like from Halo 1 you have the kind of like set pieces where it's like, okay, this is where I'm starting out, that's where I need to get, how am I going to do this? And like you die and you have to outthink and you strategize, and I've had those moments that I had in Halo 1 where I'm like hiding and I'm like, okay, I know I can get my shield back in, but no, they're actually starting to come around the corner. And it's such an amazing, fucking awesome, kick-ass feeling. I just love that. It's like you're playing against a guy's multiplayer playing in the single-player game at its best times. And I think in Halo...
So like the multiplayer matches that I never have.
Right, exactly.
The ones that exist in Potentia.
and from Halo 2, and we still haven't even talked about multiplayer, but from Halo 2, I think it takes like the great multiplayer game, but also these crazy, just insane, huge battle set pieces where you're fighting in tanks and you have other tanks fighting alongside you. You have tons of enemies all over the place.
Right, and actually for me, I think that really is my biggest complaint about the multiplayer or the campaign mode. I don't remember what I said earlier, but really this is it, is that I feel like there are these really fantastic, huge moments in the game, but I already kind of feel like I've been there and experienced those, because all of them draw on like the really great moments from Halo 2, or even there's one scene that totally like pulls from Halo 1.
There's
and
more
it was
than
an
one.
Amazing scene in Halo 1. It was like, wow, my mind's blown. And this time you're like, hey, this is cool. It's like Halo 1. But I kind of want more than that.
So here's the problem to me is there's more. One of the problems to me is there's more than one. And last night I'm sitting there playing the game, and Suzanne walks in and she looks over at me playing the game. She's like, didn't you and Brandon play this like co-op on Halo 1 like however long ago? And I was like, yeah, actually we really pretty much did.
Right. Well, I mean, to be honest, like she could see like lots of probably
she's a
not
little more in depth than you might think.
Really?
She's watched me play a lot of games.
I will say I do buy. I was surprised at the similarity to earlier Halo environments. Like, you know, you do have like a desert thing this time, but you also have the interior of these Forerunner structures that are based on the same thing, and it makes sense that they are the same thing, but they are very similar. So
yeah, although in the cases of the Forerunner architecture, there's even one section toward the end of the game that is like a complete... It's like they took a chunk of the really copy and paste section of Halo 1 and just gave you one copy of that.
Right.
So it's like this little burst of memory, but then you're gone from it. It's
that
just
little
like this
room,
quick little stop. Yeah.
With the beam in the middle. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I was happy to see the level that I'm just starting, which is near the end of the game, and it's at least worked into one of the multiplayer levels. A super organic. You've definitely never seen this in any other Halo before, and it's fucked up and weird. It almost looks like a level out of Devil May Cry 3. It's all like small intestines and shit like that. So I was happy to see that, at least, that this is this new thing. But I do understand people, if they see parts of levels. I mean, a jungle level is also something pretty different and pretty new, probably why I like that level so much as well also.
So... We've talked about a lot of things we liked. And before we leave single player, because we have to get to multiplayer, I'm going to start the controversy, because I got to tell you that, and I wrote this a couple places already, I'm not feeling quite the exuberance over Halo 3 that I get the feeling that other people are feeling. And let me just put it into perspective a couple of ways. First of all, and this is going to be an interesting comparison for a lot of you, is that I suddenly was drawn to mind images of playing Resistance and thought to myself, you know what? Resistance was a better single-player game than Halo 3.
I almost just in awe of that statement.
I'm just going to tell you because here's why. So let me tell you one of my biggest disappointments here is here we are we finally have brought the fight to Earth, right? But God damn it, if we didn't bring the fight to Earth again, because it doesn't matter where I am. Partway through Halo 3, we're not on Earth anymore, and you know what? I can't fucking tell because never do we take advantage of bringing the fight to Earth. I wanted to bring.
What are you talking about? There's the entire battle through the factory in Voy. Like that one stage, the storm is something totally different than Halo.
Not even remotely close to the evocative emotions that you get in Resistance from being in the middle of Great Britain fighting this fucking horrible horde that's coming at you in you're like in the middle of this city and you're like, God damn, I'm in the middle of a city in Great Britain and we're screwed. You never get that in Halo.
But at least it's not making the Church of England angry.
Oh, there's no touchstones. There's no nothing. You're just in another environment that could have been on a Halo, could have been on Earth, could have been on a planet CGX5.
Ultimately, what's important about it being on Earth or not? I mean, do you want like the Statue of Liberty in the background? Like
maybe it could come to life like in Ghostbusters 2.
I want it to be more. I want it to be more gripping. I want it to be.
Did
more
you want it to be like in a
me.
city with like lots of civilians and stuff like that around?
Maybe. I don't know what I wanted, but I wanted it to give me more of a emotional attachment to defending Earth than okay, I'm like.
It'd be nice if we weren't genocided.
See, I never got the whole Earth thing with Halo 2 because I guess in the ad campaign was that way, but like from the very beginning, and I was on EGM at that time. We did the first cover story. They were talking about so it's going to start off on Earth, and then you're going to go into like space station and like gas cloud thing and blah 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 blah. And a lot of people like lost sight of that because it was a couple years later that the game finally came out. And the ad campaign was like, "Yep, you're saving Earth," like, finish Earth. But to me, like, unless you're in a city, and I think like the voice sections kind of get that across, like with civilians and stuff like that. It only matters to me if it's like, environments I guess you relate to, or sort of thing.
I think that could be the problem because you never get that sense that. There's not the emotional attachment to the location that I think they want you to have. Like there's the whole thing. They're digging a really big fucking hole, but it's like, where is it? They're just digging a big hole and the ship's hanging out.
But no one, if you look at the world map of who's playing Halo, no one in Kenya is playing Halo 3 right now. So they're really missing out on that. I can kind of see that. But at the same time, when you're fighting through Voy and the civilians like realize, hey, the tide is turning and all of a sudden there's like this hope. And they like take up their pistols and wrenches and stuff and start chasing after the monsters. That's really, really cool.
Well, and also I don't think Halo is not this like Resistance-like game or Medal of Honor type game where you're dropped into Europe and you're like fighting through.
It's not compared to Medal of Honor because that is.
Well, I'm just saying that is very much a real world setting, like very urban. Like this is a bombed out city.
How's that?
This is a bombed out city thing. I like the difference to me.
But Resistance did this in a besieged London, and it was very compelling.
See,
I don't. So someone's already done that. Why would Halo 1 of 3 want to go over that same turf?
Because it wasn't Halo 3, and because Covenant is supposed to matter more to me.
To me, like that really wasn't compelling. Like to me, it was like more about like the aliens and the AI and the guns, and it was like I've kind of done this like 100 times, and this still feels like Medal of Honor with lame kind of looking lizard men.
Resistance, really? Because I think the level of design in Resistance was extremely good.
See, I just think it was kind of like a shooting gallery.
I think we need to get off the Resistance comparison and back onto the point, which is that at no point do you actually care where you are?
You don't. It's totally uncompelling.
You're just on some place where the bad guys are, and you're fighting it's the conflict with the bad guys that's important, not finishing the fight and defending Earth.
Right.
So I think that's where the emotional connection in the story lets it down. Is that you could be anywhere.
I think I agree. You do skip around because you are on these different kind of. You are on these different kind of worlds, I guess, for lack of a better term, and the cutscenes I think do drive home that it's like, no, wait, this is Earth, this is important, we have to save this, especially later on. But it's not like, okay, you are in the middle of downtown Earth, basically, like saving it from things about to storm or destroy you. And
but it's even more so than that. It's just you're just out somewhere. It's not just that you're not in downtown Tokyo saving Shibuya. It's that you're not. You're just somewhere in the jungle.
Kenya's important. It's a place. People live there.
I understand.
They don't play Halo 3 there, but they live there.
There's no landmarks. There's no touchstones. There's nothing to build that.
See,
bridge.
I understand what you're saying. I think I always separated that in my mind from the marketing campaign from the game.
So to bring the point that John was bringing back, thank you. You really brought that back for me. Let me make another comparison, which would be to BioShock, which was when I was in Rapture. I was in Rapture, and I felt by the end of the game, I felt like I knew this place, and I was in the place.
And I would say also, like, Metroid Prime is very much like an atmospheric game. It's very much thrives by this. I'm on this alien world that has this, like,
I don't know. I feel like Metroid Prime, at least the third one, kind of felt more like Halo in that you're in sort of these environments, but really the point is figuring out how to get through the environments, not so much that you're there. Like, even when you're on the space pirate planet, like, you feel like you should be fighting off hordes of space pirates, but like occasionally they'll show up. But most of the time you're just kind of wandering unfettered through the space pirate world.
But it's all about the environments there, where it's very much like
it's about the environmental puzzles, which isn't really the same thing.
But I'm not talking about gameplay. I'm talking about just graphics and how things looked. Is very much like Metroid Prime lives and dies based on atmosphere, and like each planet has its own cohesive. I am on this evil alien, world. Everything's all in reds and blooming and stuff like that. Like that, I get. It's very much an identity of where you're at. And in Halo, like, you're out in the the different kinds of wilderness, and sometimes it's on Earth, sometimes it's on this like sort of hub world kind of thing. So yeah, I mean,
I can see the point about the lack of an emotional connection, although that's really not why I play Halo, because I just don't expect that much of a connection to a game where the hero basically has no personality.
Well,
I mean, he doesn't just have a deadpan voice, it's just dead.
Right.
He's just like, a guy, a cipher, a gun who walks through the levels.
Allegedly, it's supposed to be, not allegedly, but he's supposed to be like partially, basically a cyborg warrior, right? So let's talk about the reason a lot of people will play Halo 3, which is for the multiplayer, right? I mean, this is a multiplayer game. Dozer King, who started off with an initial post and then a later post that were kind of skeptical, said that he complained about the length of this game being too short. It's like Half-Life Episode 2 is probably the same length.
Really?
But
no, that's not.
I know that's a little.
He must have played on easy.
He has a few exaggerations.
Episode is what, 6 hours?
It's like,
if that much.
If that.
I almost think that Microsoft wanted to make Half-Life 3 90% about the online and intentionally put the single-player content on the back burner. If there is any game that will help spur...
You mean Halo?
I'm sorry, yes, Halo 3.
Okay.
If there's any game that will help spur new live accounts, Halo 3 is the game to do it. And Dozer King is probably accurate there. I mean, this is going to be a multiplayer game, right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day,
past this month for most people, I mean, it's going to sell for years.
Yeah, they did add the campaign scoring and the online co-ops and stuff, so that's going to add some life to the campaign. But
that's going to add a lot.
But it's going to be like Halo 2, and it's mostly going to be people playing.
And how many people? I'd be interested to see I'd be interested to see a few months from now when they say we sold X million copies of Halo, and I'm sure that the stats they show online will be, 10 billion games of Halo or whatever the fuck it's going to be.
Right.
But what I want to know is
100 million man-years.
How many people are playing Halo multiplayer, because it's going to be a fraction of whoever buys it. Because a lot of people...
I think it's going to be a lot of people.
Well,
I think it's intimidating as hell for a lot of people.
It is. And I guess my big complaint is that it really doesn't feel like that different an experience from Halo 2. I mean, if it tells you anything, the first multiplayer map I played, I went and joined some people on my friends list just randomly. It was a Slayer match on Valhalla. I was like, wow, I haven't seen this dozens of times in Halo 2.
That's exactly what Dozer King said in one of his first posts. He says that it's a linear story, a mediocre multiplayer that's not much better than Halo 2.
I wouldn't call it mediocre.
Yeah, me neither. But and I totally agree with it is if you didn't like Halo 2 multiplayer, you're not going to like this one because it's not that different, even though it does add, I mean, it adds as much as you can ask of any sequel to its thing. But Forge. Like, let's add Forge. So let's say you're not into multiplayer as a competitive thing at all. You're like, I suck. Okay, like I can't play worth of a shit. I think there are a ton of people that will just be like, you know what, I'm going to like be the monitor guy, or I'm just going to like make levels for different people. I'm going to like Little Big Planet this shit and just, you know, turn this turn High Ground into a weird like teleporter filled pinball game. I mean,
that part is really cool. So I went on TechZilla today. It was like their debut on Revision 3 and talked about this with Patrick Norton. And I told him that I think that like the core of what really will ultimately be one of the shining stars of Halo 3 is Forge. Forge makes it to where you don't have to be a
user-created content.
It's awesome. You don't have to be a map maker to suddenly you can do creative shit with the game.
Exactly. And like you can even play while you're doing it. Like it's really fucking brilliant for a couple different reasons, and some of them I just found out about like these past couple weeks. You can basically create your own power-up in Forge, like the yellow power-up. You can make these attributes which you can make in your own games. You can attribute to like a yellow power-up, which opens up, like, that takes everything else that you've had with Forge and basically like multiplies it by 10, the possibilities that you can do with that. You know, the person that gets the power up can be faster, can be slower, can be stronger, can be weaker, can be invisible, can be this and that and the other thing. You can turn it into all of this weird different shit with that one thing. And then the other thing is teleporters, which they don't even have in the game proper in the multiplayer maps that they provide. They give to you in Forge, which lets you, that's as close as they could get to letting you change the actual geometry of the map without doing it. Like it's like, you know, map making for dummies. You know, you can do...
But not just for dummies. You know what? I hate the dummies because I don't want people to think that this is a dumbed down thing. You can be creative because you don't have to do all the other stuff. You can just focus on making a game that you want to make in multiplayer.
Well, yeah, but I mean, let's be real. This is not like what ships with Unreal Tournament or even like Halo 2. Like, you're not going to actually... Well, I think in a good way for Joe Gamer, yeah.
Do you want to really figure out how to like make the right geometry in a level to make a good level?
Yeah, no.
No, let the experts. These guys know how to make good multiplayer levels. They've made good multiplayer levels. Now we can make cool stuff in them.
Well, and I think what is cool and what will be interesting to see is actually like, are these guys... How perfect are these multiplayer levels?
Well, that's going to be a big point, right?
Because if Forge had been available on Halo 2, I know for sure, like, I could list off like a dozen changes that I know would have happened and been accepted by the community as like, yeah, you're right, you know, that sniper shouldn't have been there on Colossus, or this should have been, you know, there to counter it, or that kind of thing. That's going to be really interesting, and like, it's so cool that they're actively encouraging that. I mean, it's
really cool.
Have any of you built anything?
I have not.
I tried last night. I spent about an hour and a half in Forge playing around and trying to create my own platformer, like a Mario-style platformer by levitating crates and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was going okay for a while. Like, you really have to work with the physics because everything obeys the in-game physics. But I had it open, and some people joined me, and they were trying to help out. And then some other people joined me and said, let's be on the blue team, because we were red. And then it just turned into, like, half an hour of carnage. And we took away all the spawn points so that whenever we shot them, they would spawn from one spot, and we'd kill them with a tank.
But this is so cool.
Yeah, it kind of turned into a chaotic mess. At the end of it, I didn't save the map because it was just full of dead, charred vehicles.
Like everywhere. You said, it's very Little Big Planet-ish.
Oh yeah,
it's like you're just jumping in, playing around. It's so cool.
Some of my friends are talking about creating a bowling, like Spartan bowling game, apparently, where you have like a power drain, and I don't know, something rolls, and you try to like kill as many Spartans as you can.
They showed us baseball actually while we were out there at TGS, where you have the hammer, and somebody shoots a rocket at you, and you just like swing it and try to hit the rocket and try to make it not into a location. And somebody made, you know, the VIP, I think it is, thing where you have to travel to one location to the next, and made those as bases. I mean, there's tons of weird shit that nobody's even thought of yet that this is going to be made into. I mean, it's just so cool that not only can you save that as your own thing, but as you're creating it, that in itself, and this is where the Little Big Planet comparisons come in, as you're creating it, that is a game too. Like, they didn't turn off the game and, okay, this is an offline level editor that you're making. They've already talked about weird ideas, and these are just the simple basic things that people come up with. Like, the shit that people came up with from Halo 2 with the tools that was given are pretty crazy. Like what's now Infection, which was then like Resident Evil, the Honor Rules games. People are going to come up with crazy fucking shit. who even knows what they're going to do? But the fact that they let that open, that they let you be making things as the game is going, there's that is the X factor. That's why this game is getting 10s. Like that, I really believe. Like Forge is why this game is getting 10s. That is the couldn't have even thought of it, didn't predict it kind of X factor, amazing addition thing. That
I feel like to talk about it getting 10s. I think people have talked about Forge being really important, but I've not read a lot of detail about people really digging into it a lot. I mean,
for me, I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach because like there's this potential, but what are people really going to do with it? Because it could turn out to be something amazing, but maybe not. I'm curious to see what kind of things show up on the Bungie recommends weekly downloads or whatever. Because maybe there'll be some things that blow me away, but I don't know. From what I've used of Forge, it's a little more limited than I'd like, and it's kind of fussy. But maybe I'm just not very creative when it comes to sandbox. Like with the physics. Like you want to do things.
You want to be able to suspend things in the air and them to just stay there.
You can kind of do that, but kind of not.
Mm-hmm.
Like one trick I found out is that if you want like a hovering platform, you can put a little mini grav lift down and then put a crate right on top of that, and it will like hover and stay there. But as soon as you start to use that as a platform, then you'll like shift it off.
I saw you can also, if you use a teleporter thing and balance something on top of it, and then take away the teleporter, it'll stay there.
Yeah, supposedly. But then if you like jump on it, it falls and it never respawns.
Right. It's like a falling bridge in Mario.
Yeah, you built a collapsing platform.
Right.
But you should be able to respawn it to show up in its original spot. But when it respawns, it just drops immediately. So there are some little things that I wanted it to do that it doesn't quite do. So maybe that's just a personal preference.
I think this is going to be where the interesting blogs and message board posts, because you can already, I mean, just from this conversation, you can see that the campaign mode will be left way behind. When everyone's beaten it and knows how the story ends,
even with multiplayer,
it's going to be like, all right. But I think what I'd like to see 6 months from now is everyone, like we were saying with Infection, the way that came out of the community.
Right.
What comes out of this that's not classic Halo gameplay, that'll be the most interesting thing.
It's going to be impressive.
I really want to see Sharky get a copy of this game because he lives to find sandbox games or even games that aren't sandboxes and push them to their limits and break them. And I feel like people like him are going to be the ones who really make Forge awesome. But at the same time, people like him don't always like Halo, so I guess it's a matter of like tricking them and coaxing
How about
them.
I bring this home then with a couple of pieces from the community. First one, obviously Deus Dante listens to the show quite a bit. He says, I would say Halo 3 was 64% as good as the second, while the second was 78% as good as the first, so 3 was 54% as good as the first.
I find that putting very precise numerals on games really drives home their absolute quality.
But let me sum up for you. I think Swan the Red really captures like what a lot of people are thinking who really enjoy the game, which is I was so freaking happy that they finally made the Flood fun and interesting. I've been having a blast with everything. I can't wait till this weekend to get to sit down and play with some people and go for some achievements and stuff. I've already had some great moments in multi, like smacking 2 clowns with a warthog head on, both standing right near each other, neither moving. I guess they figured their combined powers thwart a 60-mile-per-hour warthog. and smacking a guy flying by on a mongoose with a gravity hammer and watching him and the bike go flying off into the distance.
That is a great moment when you first do that.
Good stuff.
Heartwarming. Really.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And I think that's what it's going to be for a lot of people. It's good stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, a lot of people, if you didn't like Halo 1, you didn't like Halo 2, Halo 3 is not going to really convince you. But if you look at Halo 3 as a sequel, as somebody who plays it or is even open to it, like the amount of new stuff that they threw in there as like a sequel, it's, I mean, we didn't even touch on saved films as an entire thing. I mean, Forge 4-player co-op. It's like an intimidating for other developers. We kind of hit on this last week. It's like an intimidating fucking package to put together. So, yeah, I mean,
it's much more than the sum of its parts.
Right. Well, people are hearing about it a lot this week, but I mean, it's well deserved. What else can you really say?
That's it.
Yeah, putting a score on this game was the most annoying thing I've done in ages. Because any number you put on it is going to mean something. I think I want to stop reviewing games now. It burned me out.
Well, we can't let you do that. What we can do is let you take a little break, and when we come back on the other side, we're going to jet through some news real quick. We have a couple of points that absolutely have to get talked about. And
whole 5 minutes for me? That's so nice. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Halo 3 is coming, and Walmart is the fastest way to play. Gather your crew and head to Walmart when Halo 3 goes on sale at 12:01 a.m. on September 25th, with checkout lanes just for Halo 3, plenty of copies in stock, and Halo 3 dog tags while supplies last. Visit walmart.com/Halo3 to customize your mission for obtaining Halo 3 and pass the word to your squad.
All right, we're back, and I'm going to start things off with a very quick recap of the Halo 3 news portion, which is they achieved what they were going for marketing-wise, which is they could say that they have had the biggest entertainment launch in history.
That's bullshit.
Okay. What I want to know is
fucking bullshit.
You were so ready to say that.
Yeah.
It's manufactured. It was like it's classic Peter Moore Dreamcast launch all over again.
Wait, Peter's not there anymore.
Right, but it was his initiative. So what's the number? It's a dollar number.
$170 million.
$170 million
in the U.S. alone.
In the U.S. alone, selling a product whose cheapest version is $60.
Right.
This is
that's the thing. How much money did Halo 2 make on launch day? I think it was like $149 or something.
This is like saying that Spider-Man 3 is the biggest movie ever when Sony Pictures worked with Sony's distribution arm and on jacking the price of tickets up $1 so you can make it look bigger.
I have no idea. What are you getting at, John? It's the biggest $170 million.
How many people is $170 million?
I don't know.
Halo 2 on its first day sold 2.6 million copies.
Kind of depends on how many cat helmets.
Which, in the grand scheme of entertainment history, is not very many people. How many people went?
A lot of people.
How many people went to see Spider-Man 3?
Right,
but
I mean, it is
50 million people. That's a big entertainment launch. 3 million people paying $60 to $120 for a game.
All right, so
it's not the biggest entertainment launch
so you're
in history.
interested in people. Then let me give you this one. Within the first 20 hours alone, more than 1 million Xbox Live members have come online to play Halo 3. That makes September 25th the most active Xbox Live gaming day in history.
But not the biggest event in entertainment history. It's just the biggest amount of money spent on something.
So plus, everything you do in Halo 3 is online. Your campaign scores are online. If you would like for people to look at how many headshots you got on your Savo Highway run, it's online, whether you want it to be or not. So if you have an Xbox Live account, you went online with Halo 3. You didn't have a choice.
John, you're saying it's not the biggest in terms of like people involved.
It's not. It's a big
money.
It's a big smoke and money thing. We sold a large number of a very expensive thing. It's not the biggest event in entertainment by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm pretty sure that the first day of Halo 2 was like 150 million. This was what, 170?
100 in North America alone.
Okay, in North America alone. Halo 2 sold for $50 and $60. This one sells for $60, $80, and $130. And if the money is like just incrementally over what Halo 2 made, I'm pretty sure that it didn't sell more copies. Unless everyone bought the low-end SKU and was legendary, whatever.
That is sort of what they were trying to hide here, right? The install base is not as large. There's almost no way they could have sold more, right?
Not on first day. Like when the story is told, when the history books are written, though, at the end of the cycle, like goddamn, Halo 1 and 2 have legs like nobody's business.
4 million in the U.S. and at least a dozen in Japan.
It's a spectacular launch for a game, but all this nonsense about the biggest entertainment launch in history. It's such
and let's subtract the marketing costs from that.
Well,
how much money did it cost to have Game Fuel made and to send out giant rucksacks full of crap to journalists?
Lord,
or not crap, actually, really nice stuff. $800 worth of stuff.
I'm pretty sure Game Fuel took about as much money as it cost to accidentally spill some cough syrup into a regular thing of Mountain Dew. So.
Yeah, but printing up all those labels and talking Mountain Dew into doing something dumb like that.
Well, on the dumb side, I know there are a lot of people who feel like the packaging for their limited editions was pretty dumb because they opened them up and got a scratched
my
disc.
limited was fine. I didn't have a problem.
Mark, you opened yours up?
Which one was this? Was it the Legend?
This is the one that came in the tin.
one in the tin.
The middle one.
I got the Legendary.
Yes,
not the one protected by the real-life Spartan helmet.
Yeah, mine was fine.
Mine was
Legendary.
Loose. Mine was loose and had gotten scarred up around the spindle. Not badly. It loads and everything's fine. It's just first of all, that tin is so cheap looking. I mean,
Is it like the Gears of War tin?
Is it different than the Halo 2 tin?
The Halo 2 tin is way nicer because I have the Halo 2 tin.
Actually,
also.
my Halo 3 tin, they sent me the tin and the media kit since I was on the review, which is like in the same tin but with a different sleeve. Came out fine. My Halo 2 tin was banged all to hell when I got it. So I'm having a different experience.
So here's the good news. They've already said Microsoft has already amended its Xbox Disc Replacement Program page on their website to mention that Halo 3 Limited Edition games and the Essential Disc will be covered under the program free of charge until the end of 2007.
Please ship with your Red Ring of Death Xbox 360 and your BioShock Big Daddy figurine. And perhaps anything, maybe your Wiimote that's not working anymore.
All right. And
they'll do it all in one batch.
Last but not least, if you're Xbox Live Gold member, you also get a little free online downloadable content. Which
really,
yeah,
I didn't know that. What
it's
do I get?
New wallpaper for finishing the fight.
That's right.
Is it in any way related to the stuff that you get with the excruciatingly overpriced $120 version?
No, that's something separate.
That's the cat helmet that also holds 4 CDs
but
for you.
Don't you get a live theme as part of that, as one of the toss-away things that should have been free, but we're justifying the price?
Probably.
Yeah, it's probably something different. I mean, how hard is it to make a live theme? Open up Photoshop, crank up the live theme template, toss in some art. Wow, that was 5 minutes.
I've only watched. Have any of you guys watched any of the extra supplemental stuff? Because we didn't touch on this in the Halo segment. But I just while I was eating dinner yesterday, I watched some of the.
You had to have Halo 3 happening at all times.
Well, I was. It was kind of exciting, so I watched some of the commentary over the old things. I'm just gonna say, like, Jason Jones maybe should have had somebody. If you don't have the time to watch through Halo 1 and 2 yourself, maybe somebody else could have watched it for you and provided notes for. I'm only through the first half hour, but
is he like, oh wow, I had no idea there was that part.
Alberto Gonzalez hasn't said like I don't recall this that often in one half hour as much as
yeah,
Jason
the thing
Jones.
that really baffles me about the Legendary Edition is that it has like the cinemas from Halo 1 and 2 remastered. But the Legendary audience is like the audience that least needs that information. What they really should have done is included that with the standard edition for all the Joe Schmoes who don't remember Halo 1 and 2. Hey, there's your quick recap. Now you can play Halo 3 and understand what the hell Gravemind is.
So anyway, if you happen to be an Xbox Live Gold member, go to your dashboard before Sunday, September the 30th, which is when this stuff will come down. And there's a Halo 3 theme. There's an exclusive gamer pick. There is a couple of inside Bungie The Story videos. One of them went up yesterday, one of them going up today. So you might as well grab them, right? Grab them, look at them. They're part of what you get for free. It's nice to have little perks.
Why not? Yeah, we'll throw those videos up on Game Videos.
If you're a gold member, not a Halo 3 owner, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, if you're a gold, at least that's the way the story is written from Patrick. So I'm assuming that it's part of having your gold membership on Xbox Live.
Okay.
And then last but not least on the...
If Shane were here, he would say something snarky, I'm sure.
Well,
okay, guys, Halo 3, who cares? Power Slave is the secret best console first-person shooter ever. There you go. There's your moment.
No, Disruptor. Secret.
Oh, right. Insomnia.
Disruptor.
Very good. Very good.
I was thinking more about
you've decrypted the Shane Bettenhausen Rosetta Stone.
The price of Xbox Live. I would have thought we would have got. Well, you've got to get something for your $7.
The ads on there recently and whatnot. Yeah.
All right. So on the end of the Microsoft tip, in a very interesting twist of events with PGR4, as John was just talking about to hit shelves, Bizarre Creations has been acquired by Activision. Yes. So this does change things quite a bit. Bizarre has updated its website to give a few details. One of them being that that they are not financially in trouble. That this was not the because that's become very in vogue lately, right? For a developer to be picked up because they were struggling to get by. They're couching this in the idea that it's actually a good thing for them, and that they're trying to take their games to the next level, and that this was the way for them to do it.
By which they mean PlayStation 3 also.
Yeah, and maybe Wii.
Right. Yeah, I can't wait to play Project Gotham Racing with the Wii steering wheel attachment. It'll be a great follow-up to Mario Kart Wii.
Well, and obviously Geometry Wars plays into this. I mean, we know Sierra is about to publish the Geometry Wars for Wii, so they're going to do some interesting stuff. We do know from this also that one of the first 2 games that they are on the slate to do for Activision is a racing game.
So what does this mean?
Big shock.
Right. Well, I mean, but it's not going to be maybe for Activision. This is very much an acquisition that fits with what they've been doing because this is their entree to get into the Need for Speed sort of genre, right? They want to go take on Need for Speed and Midnight Club.
So who owns PGR?
Microsoft owns PGR because Activision had to clarify their statement here and say that by the way, the franchise is owned by Microsoft. And Microsoft did actually comment to GameDaily.biz. They said Bizarre Creations has been a great partner for Microsoft Game Studios, and we wish them nothing but the best in the future. Project Gotham is a signature racing franchise for the Xbox 360 and Xbox Live, and we plan to continue that series, but we have nothing further to announce. Hello. Hi, Turn 10. Wonder what your next project is.
Turn 10 guys just got really busy.
Yeah, they got really, really busy because suddenly they have to pull it all together.
You think so, though?
Bizarre's relationship with Microsoft was sort of a second party kind of thing, right?
Well, it was interesting because it came as a knock-on to, presumably came as a knock-on to Sega's Dreamcast closeness with Microsoft, and it seemed, I guess, like a natural transition to take the series over from the Dreamcast platform to the Xbox.
But yeah, I mean, they, at least with that series was handled as like a second-party type of deal, so it will be interesting to see what they do.
It's a big hit for Microsoft. You got to wonder if there are any other dings coming from studios that are, because Microsoft seems to be bringing things closer and closer to its chest internally. Like MGS is getting bigger and bigger in terms of, and they're doing a lot of stuff themselves.
They're definitely going through some challenges there on how to manage the difference between first party and third party, and there's kind of a layer there that they've kind of missed, which is the second party stuff. Tight, retained, but the guys who get to retain their independence, but are working on your projects for you, and that's a really important layer to have. I hope they don't completely lose that.
Plus, you got to think that surely everyone expected Microsoft to buy Bizarre at some point.
Oh, absolutely, right? I mean, you have to think that there's somebody there at Microsoft going, wait, how'd we get screwed by Activision?
Maybe Microsoft's going down the Sony path of let's bring it all in-house. I mean, that seems to be the attitude at Sony these days.
It does.
Well, Square is looking for a partner in the West, according to this list. So, Square, Bungie.
Ahead, yes.
We would like to stress that Halo is a property of Microsoft Game Studios. But please look forward to Final Fantasy VII, the first-person shooting.
Master Chief takes his helmet off, and it's actually
got spiky hair. He's so beautiful, porcelain features.
He looks like a girl.
And a lot of belts.
On the Sony tip, actually, Sony's had quite a few things to trumpet their horn about lately, not the least of which is the PSP Slim sales in Japan. It's doing quite well there. They've sold, the first reports that we had through Famitsu were over 250,000 standalone units, plus another 75,000 with the Crisis Core bundle. That's like...
Oh, plus the Crisis Core? Right. That doesn't include the Crisis Core.
That's like 325,000.
So how many copies of Crisis Core they sold in Japan?
It's up over 500,000 now.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's a lot of non-game time.
A lot of non-game time. Hi, PSP, suddenly doing really well again. We've talked about PSP making resurgence.
We'll see if this actually holds up.
Well, come on, PSP, how many times have we said that? PSP has never been doing badly, except maybe compared to what it was expected to do at launch.
Or actually maybe compared to DS.
Well, that's the only thing.
That's the thing, right?
You want to compare it to that. PSP is doing great. Third-party games are selling good on it. PSP is not in trouble. I can only imagine if they would have made a significantly different-looking PSP. Not that the Slim isn't better in a lot of ways, but if they would have had something like a DS Lite to DS kind of.
I feel like they kind of missed the boat on that one by not making it more dramatically different. I bought a Slim when I was in Japan, and I like it. I do like it. It has a nice bright screen. The screen is still a little janky when it comes to scrolling objects. It doesn't handle movement so well, just like the old one. But it's brighter, so that's good. It's crisper. The
tray is
system
kind of
is lighter. The tray is kind of weird.
Yeah.
It feels flimsy. I don't like that the back is slick because on the previous one it had a textured back. I felt like I had a better grip on it. When my hands start sweating as I'm playing, I'm sure it's just going to be like a bar of soap popping out.
When you're playing,
when I actually play a game as opposed to just watching Crisis Core. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So their other piece of hardware, they're still trying to sort out how to get sales stimulated on that, and there's been an ongoing rumor that there's going to be yet another SKU for the PS3 this holiday season. Here's a little more fuel for the fire. Daily Tech, which we picked up via Kotaku, has found an FCC filing made by Sony for a new PlayStation 3 with a new model number, and of course this is feeding into the fires that there's going to be a 40 gig $399 SKU, which if you haven't been following, that's a combination of Ars Technica, which is a great tech website. They've been allegedly reporting that a mole inside Sony has pointed to 3 changes this fall. Those being that the 80 gig PS3 would be $499, the PS2 would drop to $99.99, and a 40 gig model would come in at $399. And then our good friend of the show, Ngai, has jumped in there and said that he has heard reports that substantiate this, including that there's demand for 40 gigabyte hard drives. What do you guys think?
I'd say it sounds pretty plausible.
If all three of those things don't happen, I think it's a big mistake.
Yeah.
All three?
I think they have to do all three of them.
Sony would be making a mistake if it doesn't have a $400 PlayStation 3 by the time Metal Gear Solid 4 ships, because that game will be a system seller if the system is reasonably priced. But $500 is still a lot to ask.
There's a bunch of one-up members that when we polled them, that we said, if you don't have a PS3, what's the game that's going to make you buy it? And it was almost unanimously Metal Gear Solid 4.
Yeah,
so they have 6 months to get that going.
Even that, like this fall with Madden, or multi-platform games when GTA comes out, like, do you really want to, be that much more expensive and not have the specter of downloadable content?
Right.
Hanging with your competition.
And as for the $99 PS2, about fucking time.
Really, for real, right? How much money have they put in the bank by not having to lower the price on that thing and still selling hundreds of thousands of them?
Yeah.
So the other part that rings true about this for me is that Ngai also cites a source that claims the profit and loss margins for each of the individual regions of the world have been now assigned out to the directors responsible for those regions. In other words, if you're Europe, you can keep the pricing where you want to because your profit and loss and sales are up to you, and American can do what they want to do. So if America wants a 40 gig unit, it gets a 40 gig unit and has to deal with it on its own. And Europe can say, we don't have a 40 gig unit.
That's weird.
We don't know what you're talking about.
I wonder if we're going to end up with more quotes from Europe.
Yeah, I was going to say,
America.
Do you think they made this decision because Europe kept shooting the American PR?
Absolutely. No, see, that absolutely makes sense to me. And as a matter of fact, GameIndustry.biz reports that Sony of Europe claimed that the price drops were mere rumors and speculation, which is exactly playing into this whole idea of like each group, each region being responsible for themselves. It's business-wise, it makes sense in short term. I'm concerned about what the implications might be long term because you start to really fracture the PlayStation.
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
But to what degree? I mean, like, when is that much storage really going to be an issue?
I don't know.
I was going to say every PS3 has a hard drive, so its market will never be as fragmented as Xbox 360.
Right.
Never.
Right. Good point. Very good point.
And when you say it makes business sense to us, it makes business sense to us as gamers who want to buy something. Who knows how much business sense it makes when you actually add up what the components are. Like, no, if it really does drop to $399, even if it's with the 40 gig version, like that's lots of weird stuff is happening with PS3 that's not typical for a first year cycle of new hardware.
That's very true.
Yeah.
There's definitely continuing pressure on them from the development community to lower the price. For instance, this week, SCI, who now owns also IDOS, reported a record loss of what account 30 million euros, which in American dollars is a $60 million loss. Pretty substantial. And they pointed directly back to struggles with the launch of the PlayStation 3, and the board said that it is the opinion that the key driver to the acceleration of the install base of PlayStation 3 will be a further hardware price cut.
Well, that goes back to something that we were talking about a year ago, and that is that for most of the world, the foundation of the games industry is the PlayStation brand.
It's very much
and
so.
When we said we were terrified of the PlayStation 3 pricing strategy back when they made it, back at the beginning, and everyone was like, oh, what are you guys saying that for? This is why.
Exactly.
You know what, though? Like, also, what kind of scapegoating could be going on here? Because
it is scapegoating, but
but
at the same time,
what PS3 exclusive titles they have coming out that they were counting on to make these sales? Really?
Well,
but really? I think if I think there's a lot of stuff going on over there because 360 games in Europe, outside of the UK, just tanking. I mean, there are publishers and studios in Europe talking about not releasing 360 games in Europe anymore because France, Germany, and Spain, which are the next three biggest markets behind the UK, they do nothing. PlayStation is so strong there that the 360 doesn't stand a chance.
Globally, this market for this generation has gotten really, really bizarre.
Yeah.
Really bizarre. And to just sum it up, CEO Jane Kavanaugh also noted that she feels that IDOS and SCI have the strongest portfolio of products moving forward in the history of the company. Interesting.
Really?
I don't know.
Because IDOS back in the Tomb Raider 2 days
I was
had
just
a pretty strong lineup.
No, I don't know if I'd call that strong. Maybe strong aroma.
Strong
Tomb Raider 2?
sales.
No,
yeah.
I mean Tomb Raider 2 was a strong game, but like Ninja Shadow of Darkness and
that was
Dungeon, whatever the dungeon game where they had
that was Tomb Raider 1.
Oh.
When,
all right. And Urban Chaos.
Fighting Force or whatever it was called.
Those things sold like crazy.
They
Yeah, but they weren't good.
They were terrible, but they sold like
I mean,
millions.
do we determine a strength of a portfolio and how well it sells, or how much people actually want to play it once they actually own
I don't
it?
think Eidos has ever had a perfect
Much
track
qualms
record.
about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so
I'll buy
wrapping
that.
up the Sony hardware tip, you might as well get your order into NCSX or whatever your favorite importer is now, because apparently we really aren't getting the DualShock 3s here in America until next spring. And the explanation that Sony gives is, rather poor in my estimation. It says,
Like most.
their spokesperson said, given our production manufacturing timeline, we plan to introduce the new controller in Japan first and then release it in North America and Europe.
That way you'll buy the 40 gigabyte $400 PS3, and
Right.
then you'll have to buy a controller upgrade next
Pretty
year.
much.
Did you
Right.
guys hold? I got to hold one last week.
Oh, yeah, we got to play with them, yes.
Yeah, it feels like a real controller.
It's
Yay!
great. But it's not too heavy. You know what? I really like it. I really like it a lot. And
But does it really matter, because no one has a PS3 game that actually will support it until Metal Gear Solid 4?
Burnout.
Burnout.
Burnout
does,
will
really?
support it out of the box. Yes,
And
sir.
didn't they release a
That's
list
fancy.
of games that they were going to
They did.
patch or something?
They did indeed. So the point is here that she also makes is a double-edged sword, which is that she's not aware of anything that would prevent the hardware from being locked or would cause it to be locked out here in the States. So if you're interested in buying one, that's great.
If they start locking controllers by region, we're going to have words.
But well, they may not have to do that because there's no promise that any of the software in American versions will be updated to support Rumble until the release officially in America.
They
of
said
Rumble
if
versions.
the Rumble will be backwards
but wait,
compatible with
Burnout's
PlayStation
coming
2
out
games.
in January, so
Well, can you put it past them to say, oh, you know what, we're not going to let you include Rumble support out of the box, you'll have to add it as a patch?
weren't they demoing it with Rumble?
They were demoing it with Rumble. I'm just saying there's nothing to say they wouldn't do that. I don't think they will. I'm just saying that that's at least retroactively.
Wasn't this the root of the whole weird, like, leaking out thing?
Right.
Was Burnout?
I think games that come out like Burnout will have it, but I don't think that you'll necessarily see Warhawk patched to include Rumble support
Right,
until the
that
North
makes
American
sense.
release, which kind of sucks because I'm going to import one. Are you going to import one?
Yeah,
I will totally import one.
I might.
Answer this. Will the Rumble support PlayStation 2 games? Is that a yes or a no?
I do not know the answer to that question.
Because if I can play PS2 games, which is mostly what I do on my PS3, actually it's all I do on my PS3.
But Jeremy,
then
this is next gen Rumble. It's
It's not
completely
last gen.
different
Oh, it's
from
different than the
DualShock
last gen
2,
feature.
so-
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Next gen Rumble. So speaking of taking things away, one thing Sony will be taking away is, according to an announcement that showed up on the Gran Turismo website, they're going to remove the Gran Turismo HD from the store, at least in Japan, on September the 30th. So if you're in Japan, get ready to go ahead and go grab it because it's going to go away. And I would say
Why?
also, no explanation was given. However,
Because they want to sell you Prologue?
right, which is not out until December. I guess they're assuming that everyone who's gotten it will already got it. Apparently, the in-game scoreboards will
Take it
still
away
work.
now.
Take it away now and starve them.
Make
Right.
them really want it.
You said it, not I. I think that's pretty much it,
Gagging
right?
for it by December.
I guess so. So, as far as multiplayer development goes, we had an interesting quote this week from Mark Rain, who was talking about PlayStation 3 and PC cross-platform playability on Unreal Tournament. He reinforced how important the PC community is to them by saying that they will not have cross-platform play in Unreal Tournament because the PC player is their bread and butter, and we don't want to let them down or compromise their experience in any way to accommodate cross-platform play that would result from having to wait for certification to keep the versions identical to one another.
Which
Right.
is smart.
Yeah, I mean,
Based on Shadowrun, it's smart.
Well, look at the sales numbers for any previous Unreal Tournament game on all consoles. Add them up. I mean, Unreal Tournament is a PC franchise, especially with
Absolutely.
the PS3's install base. Like,
Yeah.
much less like all the downloadable content and that kind of stuff that they're talking about. Like, that stuff just really belongs and makes sense on the PC.
Plus, does anyone really care?
I don't know that they do. Yeah, you know what? You're probably right. I really don't know they do. I mean,
a lot of the time, particularly on the PC side of things, they would actively avoid Xbox players.
Absolutely.
With non-shooter games, it makes much more of a difference. With like a Final Fantasy 11 or like an MMO, it actually does make sense that you'd be able to play with your friends, whether you're playing on each. But like, you're so screwed playing on a console anyway.
And PC shooter fans really are their own, like, very insular little knot of people who have this very kind of snobbish mindset at times.
Mice that cost $100 just to be able to be more precise.
I would love in post-mortem to have Mitch in and see what his thoughts are, having been like someone who is very, very closely tied to this issue.
Yeah, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, and so also, as Jeremy pointed out a little bit ago, looking for a dance partner, Square Enix, they're very interested, as they reported to the Financial Times, in finding a partner for Western distribution.
Do they want Western distribution or Western development? Because they've already had a Western distributor partner.
I would say that they don't.
They were with EA for a while, right?
Yeah,
I think they want.
Like they did the tete-a-tete with EA for most of the PlayStation generation.
Yeah.
So they were releasing EA's games in Japan, and EA was releasing their games here.
It's a little bit interesting. The person being interviewed was Michihiro Sasaki, who said that we need to seek cooperation with a U.S. publisher. Okay, that sounds like just publisher. Went on to say, we need local content. Our strength is in role-playing games and fantasy titles, so it's a bit difficult to appeal to the U.S. market. So right now, they currently do somewhere between 10 and 20% of their gross revenue in the United States. They want to bring that up to 50% of their gross revenue. I didn't originally think it was development, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them seeking out some American development partners.
It would be weird. Every time Square, and they've tried it a lot. I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting some examples. I'm not talking about like Rad Racer or that shit, but anytime Square has wandered outside of the RPG land, even with what's it called, Final Fantasy VII, Dirge of Cerberus, it gets kind of dicey.
I don't know. Like they did some really good stuff that was outside of the RPG box back on PlayStation. Tobal, Einhander.
Einhander was
Bushido Blade.
Bushido Blade was fantastic.
But none of these like really huge franchises that lasted.
Which generation was that? Or was Rad Racer?
That was NES.
Yeah.
No, then there was one. Was there a PlayStation?
Driving
Emotion Type S.
Oh God, yeah.
The emotion you felt was rage.
Actually, it was just kind of barf.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think you can already see Square kind of moving toward this, like, let's get Americans interested with The Last Remnant, which has been designed with a character meant to appeal to Japanese characters.
Right.
He's young and beautiful. Or to Japanese players who's young and beautiful, and to American players who's like grizzled old, has a blonde mullet, looks pissed off.
So what will be interesting for me to see is how serious are they taking this? How far are they willing to carry it? Will we see westernization of some of their classic titles, or some of their real core products in Japan, or will those stay true to their vision and come here? And will we see other products that are tailored to our audience?
I imagine it's probably going to be other products. I think we're going to see. I mean, we've seen Square dabble in creating games for Americans before. They had Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, which was a dumbed down RPG. They had Secret of Evermore, which was like Secret of Mana but less fun, and that was actually developed by Square USA as their one and only game.
How about this? Square, BioWare, 2011, Believe.
Sonic Fantasy 7.
They could join the
Sonic already has the spiky hair. It's perfect.
They could join forces. It would be a game that would sell.
BioWare and Pandemic together with that sort of trio.
Who knows what it would burn.
Unstoppable.
Oh, goodness. So let's wrap this thing up with a couple of interesting and fun Wii announcements. The first one being that Fatal Frame, which is a relatively overlooked in the West, but very cool survival horror type game.
It actually did okay, especially the first one.
Is that the one with the butterfly?
Yes, and the cameras, and the cameras and the ghosts, which is really very cool, very atmospheric. Well, it's moving to the Wii.
So is this confirmed, by the way, or is this stuff we've heard?
I would say it's pretty well.
Well-placed sources.
Well-placed sources.
The second part of this is what interests me, though, with Grasshopper.
Right, which is actually now they have a new name for the studio, which I didn't write down before I came down here, but it's no longer going to be exactly. I think it's
not Grasshopper Manufacturer.
No, it's like. Look it up. I think it's in one of our upcoming stories. We have the name for it. So they're going to produce the next Fatal Frame. So that as soon as they're done with No More Heroes,
right.
So here you have the No More Hero guys with the Wii doing Fatal Frame. Now
there's no telling where that's going to go.
There's no telling where it's going to go.
Well, I think it's a great move. It's one of those moves that's like great from both ends. Like I think it's going to get Grasshopper's going to get more attention. I mean, they're going to get attention for this because Fatal Frame is an established franchise, and Fatal Frame is going to get like a much needed, like just based on Killer 7. The Grasshopper's made a ton of games, a lot of them licensed, but
and Fatal Frame very atmospheric.
Well, yeah, but just based on Killer 7 and No More Heroes, like it seems like kind of an inspired pairing to hook up the kind of weird, esoteric, psychedelic,
Well, hopefully because I think one of the things that slowed Fatal Frame down here is that there was nothing to really set it apart from Silent Hill, Resident Evil. It was another. People that played it loved it, but not many people went and picked it up.
Well, it was very. I think a lot of people didn't equate it actually with those games because they thought they saw the schoolgirl and they saw us as very, very Japanese, which it was, themed thing about photography. There's this whole thing in Japanese culture about taking pictures and you kind of see a ghost in the picture.
Yeah,
which
you even have some of that in Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, exactly, which is what it's based on, and it was very unapologetically Japanese. So Grasshopper, like we did this great interview with Suda51, the head of Grasshopper while we were there at TGS. It should be up on Game Videos or in the 1UP show in the next couple of weeks. But one of the things he said is we asked him a question for EGM, like, how do you change your games for the West? And his thing was, I actually design games for the West and then change them for Japan, which was an interesting thing. So with that kind of mindset going into Fatal Frame, it should be kind of cool. See what they come up with.
Last but not least, and I have to tell you because I own the maracas, I'm very excited about this one. Samba de Amigo coming to the Wii.
Is this confirmed, or is it just one of those, it would sure be nice?
No, we have an update. Absolutely 100% confirmed by Sega of America. Samba de Amigo is on its way to the Wii. Here's another one of those weird developer marriages, though, from... That's right, Gearbox Software, who you might know for Brothers.
Yeah.
So Randy pitched forward.
Wow, like things, FPS Port City.
And then
now
between phrases in the songs, you shoot things.
Right. And send your squad out to, I don't know, grab the maracas.
Okay, you go play the guitar and you dance around the sombrero.
It's completely bizarre. Like, you know what? It doesn't matter. It's Samba de Amigo.
Yeah.
I loved that game. I had so much fun with that game.
It's like these are both actually really good pairings because like this one with not what's their names making it, but with the Wii and Samba de Amigo,
right?
Not Gearbox necessarily, but it kind of doesn't matter who's
But how many times
it.
You walked into a developer's office, that especially someone like the Gearbox, who's a bunch of creative guys doing shooters or whatever, but they have so many other and creative energies there that like getting this release for them is going to be awesome, not just for this game, but for whatever they do next as a shooter because they'll be fresh. I think it's awesome.
Right, and Samba de Amigo on Wii is such a great idea because you have the controllers built in.
Exactly.
Like I think the big drawback to Samba de Amigo, aside from being on Dreamcast that, just kind of doomed it, was also the fact that you had to buy these gigantic ass maracas, otherwise the game wasn't any fun to play. Yes. Now you have controllers that are already motion sensitive, so you shake those and you're good to go.
Exactly. And people, it's no longer this weird thing to even think about. People are like, oh yeah, maraca game on the Wii.
Shake it?
I get it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good use of the Wii. Hopefully this has been a good use of your time. You know where to find us, boards.1up.com. Please come and share some more of your Halo 3 experiences. We might bring some of those into the message board content part where we will try to not overplay Halo 3 because we've covered it in depth.
And we'll have Shane here next week, and I mean that's all he's going to want to talk about.
Every time he mentions it, he'll just yawn and fall asleep.
Yeah.
So there you go. Catch up with us at boards.1up.com. I'm Garnet Lee for Mark McDonald, John Davison, and special guest Jeremy Parrish. Thank you very much for listening. We'll catch you next week. Until then, we are Ghost.